Lying on the bed, she was shivering from the cold, feeling as if ice was making its way into her heart. She remembered why the room was so unbearably cold. Suddenly, Dietrich Lagrange spoke to her, catching her by surprise. Waking up suddenly, she rubbed. She rubbed her nose with surprise and thought that he had returned. She immediately turned to him. Dietrich, an 8-year-old boy, asked if he had woken her up. She assured him that she was awake. Although she hesitated to explain her condition, Dietrich came closer to support her. She noticed how he learned to control his shadow as if it had become part of his body. Anna thought about how much he had changed, being the most powerful villain in the world. When she tried to touch his shadow, she realized that it was impossible. Anna hesitated, thinking about her situation. Anna realized that she was living in a novel she had read in a past life called Their War of Roses. In front of Anna stood a boy named Dietrich Lagrange. He was destined to become the sole heir of the House of Lagrange after defeating many rivals. Thanks to his extraordinary magical abilities, he was soon to become the youngest Grand Duke of the Lagrange family. However, his future turned out to be bleak. He was doomed to a terrible fate, buried alive by Hermann Euclid, the main character of the novel and at the same time the villain. Dietrich suddenly interrupted her thoughts by asking if anyone else was present. She was surprised for a moment and asked who exactly he meant. He brushed off his own question, assuring her that it was a small matter, and turned the conversation to her, wondering how things were going with her abilities. Anissa despairingly remembered how people claimed that she had common parents with Dietrich. Unlike her brother, However, the girl was not born with the ability to control shadows. The girl, who had not yet developed her abilities, suddenly burst into tears. Apologizing in a quiet voice, Anissa thought about her true nature. She realized that she was not Dietrich's own sister, because she was born as Euclid in the hostile Lagrange family. It was the older brother Hermann Euclid who was destined to bury Dietrich's alive. She did not even suspect its existence. Despite the protection of the sun god, she was the only one in the Euclid family who was born without solar powers. She remembered the harsh words of her mother who, looking at her, refused to believe that this was really her child. She desperately wanted to die, feeling useless and despised. Anissa's life took a sharp turn when she was kidnapped by Euclid's Lagrangian rivals. Her family considered her a burden and did not even try to save her. Surprisingly, she was adopted by the Lagrange family, making her the youngest daughter, although it seemed that it was more convenient for them. In the harsh conditions of this family, Anissa admitted that the only person she could trust was Dietrich. Anissa mourned her fate, wondering how it happened that even though she finally became part of a noble family, no one was interested. Despite the fact that she was officially recognized as the youngest daughter, the Lagrange family did not want to spend money on a child who did not have shadow magic. Deciding to survive at any cost, she focused her efforts on winning Dietrich's favor, seeing him as the only possible ally. Dietrich carefully handed Anissa a cute teddy bear, asking her to keep it temporarily. Surprised, she asked what kind of gift it was. He carelessly threw her the logo of a bear, exclaiming, "Love." Jingle reacted angrily, thinking that he was treating her like a child, as if she should be playing with a rattle. Worried and firmly stated that she did not want it, considering the fact that the bear was a toy for babies. But when she took it in her hands, suddenly a sharp object came out of the teddy bear. She jumped back, shocked and confused, seeing a knife that suddenly emerged from a seemingly innocent toy. Dietrich, stunned by the discovery, explained that the knife would respond only to her touch and not to others. He advised her to use the knife if someone appeared from the shadows with the intention of harming her, as had happened before. Anissa at first thought that he was crazy and asked with surprise. In a panic, Anissa threw the knife aside, exclaiming that Dietrich could not do this. He wanted to know why she couldn't. His intense gaze scared her terribly, and she wondered how an 8-year-old boy could look so menacing. Anissa Burstow was stunned by the accusations of the crime. She insisted that she was still a child and could not do it. Tears welled up in her eyes as Anissa again denied the accusations. A sense of powerlessness gripped her because she was still a very young child who couldn't even read. And then Dietrich expected her to be able to kill people. It didn't fit in her head. Disappointed, she questioned the chaotic nature of the Lagrange house. She dreamed of a luxurious life in a wealthy family, second only to the royal family. Life turned into a real nightmare. Feeling completely hopeless, she began to cry, longing for the thought that her dreams were destroyed. Remembering the past, Anissa realized how often her family ignored her, as if she was transparent. She was always sheltered by older children as if she was just a burden. Reborn as the daughter of Duke Ennis, she hoped that her life would finally change radically. She discovered that she was the niece of the heroine from the novel War of the Roses. She was amazed at how deeply a small child could sigh. His irritation was evident as he muttered under his breath. She smiled, realizing that they were both similar at the bottom of the social hierarchy, but without any connections, Lancel held Anissa in his arms, resenting his fate and losing hope. Lancel, in despair, cursed the late Madame Camilla, not believing that she could die giving birth to this creature. Angry at his fate, he asked why such a fate befell him. He bitterly dreamed that Madame Camille was alive, because then he would not have to change diapers. His loud complaints annoyed Anissa so much that her ears were ringing and she silently reproached herself. Anissa remembered, one of the many wives of the Grand Duke Lagrange. In the novel Their War of the Roses, Camille was portrayed as the mother of Dietrich, the main antagonist who opposes the main character. Most people thought that Camille died during the birth of Anissa, but the real story was completely different. Anissa was not her daughter at all. Camille remembered the moment when she carefully examined the baby. She held the baby in the air with one hand like a toy. Despite everything, she was struck by the incredible beauty of Camille. Anissa remembered her tragic past. Camille once planned her kidnapping, but he was eventually eliminated on the orders of Euclid Knight. He did not come to save Anissa, but to carry out a deadly mission. Camilla died along with the unborn child, but by some miracle. Anissa miraculously survived, but was mistakenly identified as Camilla's daughter in the Lagrange family. Being alive is better than any other fate. The new life in the Lagrange family turned out to be not at all sweet. Lancel, full of indignation, roughly grabbed Denise by the hand. She instantly bowed to Dietrich, begging for forgiveness, but he was silent. Denise squeezed her hand in fright and tears appeared in her eyes from the pain. She felt internal pain from his rough touches, and being annoyed with her team only increased her suffering. He thought that it was he who deserved the tears because he himself was trembling with fear. Anissa shuddered, feeling the depth of his bitterness. His next words pierced her when he exclaimed that it was she who should die. Anissa noticed how a black aura swirled around Lancel's heart. A sign of deep hatred, however, Anissa's gaze was drawn to the blue hue in the center. She understood that the blue aura reflected sadness. Watching Lancel cry over Adam Camille, she realized how much he loved her, remembering his own lack of solar magic characteristic of the Euclid family. When Lancel fell asleep, Anissa thought he had finally calmed down. But when he did, she was surprised to find that it wasn't all. He abruptly left the room, leaving her without dinner. She felt abandoned and hungry, letting out a scream that echoed throughout the room. Cursing him mentally for his neglect, Anissa was bitterly aware of her situation. Lancel cared for her only enough to barely survive. She blamed Duke Derek Lagrange for everything. Despite his reputation as a villain, Dietrich showed unquestioning devotion only to the main character of the novel. She remembered how Derek didn't show an iota of love for his children to get the slightest bit of attention or care from him. The children were forced to participate in a wild competition for the right to own an aircraft. These competitions went beyond the usual tests of strength or intelligence to test endurance and moral principles. Anissa constantly mentioned the many threats to her life that she also had to experience. Because of this brutal system, Anissa noticed two boys in the distance. From a distance, the boys were discussing whether it was she who needed to be got rid of. Their suspicious eyes were directed at Anissa, as if they were considering a plan of action. When they got closer, Anissa panicked. Having made sure that there was no one nearby, they decided to act. Anissa felt sinister intentions when she saw their bright yellow aura. She realized that they were enjoying the situation like the audience in a theater. She realized that this scene was just part of the fierce competition within the Lagrange family. Newborns who did not have abilities often became the first victims in this merciless struggle. Desperately, she screamed through her tears, hoping that the scream would awaken the remnants of conscience in the boys. Hearing her screams, Dietrich rushed to the scene and sharply asked the boys about their actions. The boys froze in surprise, struggling between fear and challenge in response to the unexpected appearance of Dietrich. One morning, Dietrich unexpectedly did not intervene, and Anissa realized that it was not her crying that stopped them, but Dietrich's appearance. She wondered how he would handle the situation. One of the boys angrily ordered Dietrich not to interfere in their affairs, but Anissa, hearing his name, suddenly guessed who he was. She understood that in front of her was the future Grand Duke who would become the most terrible villain of this world. Unable to raise her head because of her childish body, she trembled at the thought of his terrible anger. Despite everything, Dietrich repeated his question with such authority that it forced. Using his shadow powers, Dietrich quickly taught them a lesson. Anise watched in awe, marveling at his strength and thinking how incredibly powerful he was. She could not tear herself away from him, admiring his beauty even as a child. She began to understand why he would turn into the most powerful villain because his appearance stood out with a bright glow. She shouted at Dietrich, explaining that in this cruel era, every newborn became an easy target. Dietrich, steadfast and self-confident, denied that every newborn life became an easy target only when there were no brave defenders nearby. He pointedly asked if they dared to harm the child while he was here. The boy stuttered and apologized, explaining that this child was Dietrich's sister. But Dietrich quickly cut him off with a mocking snort. Disregarding the idea that he acts because of family feelings, he mockingly declared that they are stupid if they think so. Dietrich, showing calm confidence, explained that the ability to defend is an invaluable skill in this world. The boys, frozen with surprise and thinking about her safety, hastened to apologize, assuring that they did not even know that she was under his protection. Without hesitation, Dietrich ordered them to leave immediately. The frightened boys instantly disappeared, leaving behind traces of panic. Anissa watched Dietrich with a combination of impression and anxiety. She wondered how this 6-year-old could radiate such unwavering confidence. She realized that this boy is her only way to survive. She decided to rely on him as her protector, realizing that his strength and determination could become her only salvation until he can escape from a dangerous environment. She realized that he did not let the boys go as she thought, but showed cruelty. His ruthlessness came as a shock to her, and she realized that there is no room for illusions. Dietrich took a step forward, and Annis felt her nerves tighten like a string. Dietrich meticulously recalled how he once manipulated Anissa using the fact that she was Herman's sister. Anissa understood that Dietrich was her only hope and was determined to ensure her survival, even though she felt so defenseless in her childish state. Anissa decided to gain his trust and ensure her protection. She tried to charm Dietrich with her gentle smile, but he was only surprised. She convinced herself to hold out until the end of the war, hoping to appeal to his kindness and escape. She grimaced cutely and held out her small hands, hoping that these charming antics would definitely conquer his heart. However, Dietrich reluctantly responded, leaving her disappointed. She realized that her efforts had not led to success. She watched him carefully, trying to decipher his aura. She was unique, colorless, and distinguished by her steadfastness from anyone she had seen before. Anissa reached out to grab Dietrich's hand, but Dietrich suddenly pulled his hand away, asking what she was up to. Smiling to herself, she reflected that her actions were just an innocent gesture. She remembered that a light touch can soften even the most hardened hearts. Despite his resistance, she laughed merrily and playfully grabbed his finger. Dietrich looked puzzled, trying to understand what B meant. Anissa barely perceptibly pointed at him, hinting that she wanted to call him brother. In her mind, she smiled mockingly at his serious look, thinking that he was still too young to worry about wrinkles. Dietrich was about to say something when he noticed how the tension of his mood sparkled in the yellow-green aura around him. The door opened and the room was filled with thick darkness, spreading with a heavy aura. Anissa froze in fear as she recognized this ominous crimson aura. Anissa didn't need to see the owner to understand who this ominous aura belonged to. It was none other than Derek Lagrange, the head of the House of Lagrange. Derek suspiciously asked Dietrich why he had appeared here. Dietrich calmly answered that he fulfilled the conditions of the competition. Derek was interested in his words, but at the same time, a certain mistrust was felt in his eyes. Derek, being interested in the child in the room, called her a thing. Anissa got angry after hearing this. She laughed with anger in her soul, indignant at his indifference and heartlessness. His mother was a stranger to him. Derek looked indifferent when he asked who Camilla was. This struck Anissa, because Derek did not even remember his own wife. In her thoughts, they screamed insulting words for him, who lost elementary memory. Derek finally remembered that Camille was a prisoner of war that he had ransomed. This mention only further emphasized the devaluation of her existence in his eyes. He reflected on her death during childbirth, considering it a waste of money. He admitted that she had become at least a little valuable by giving birth to an heir, although his words were laced with cruel indifference. Anna, full of inner anger, silently looked at Derek, outraged by his callous words about Dietrich and the death of their mother. Derek didn't hesitate to say that if Dietrich can't prove his worth, it's better for him to die quickly without wasting resources. Anissa seethed with rage just imagining Derek's insolence. She showed him the middle finger, showing contempt. Dietrich didn't have time to notice this gesture, which made Anissa blush and tremble with excitement. Dietrich asked if her had a broken arm, but this only caused a nervous smile on Anissa's face. He carefully placed his hand on her forehead to use magic to assess her abilities. Dietrich felt disappointed when his attempts to discover magical abilities did not yield any results. She was amazed that a 6-year-old child had such profound knowledge but kept faith that her own magic remained invisible. Dietrich coldly assessed that she would not last long. However, Anissa was determined to prove the opposite to him. She firmly grabbed his finger and smiled defiantly, planning to hide in his shadows for protection. Anissa sat alone thinking about her plan to survive by gaining Dietrich's favor. Was there any point in it if he hardly ever showed up? She shuddered when she heard the door open and turned hopefully to see Dietrich. She was disappointed to see not Dietrich, but Lancel, the usual food delivery boy. She marked him as redundant with annoyance, while Anissa mumbled something that sounded like delivery. Lancel rudely shoved a bottle of milk into her mouth, making her shut up sharply. His irritation was felt in every word that flew from her lips. Annoyed, Anissa cast a menacing look at him, mentally reproaching him for the cold milk. She tried to justify him with the harsh northern climate and decided that Lancel was simply unwell. She convinced herself that Lancel was not serving cold food on purpose, but she increasingly doubted his abilities. Her cold milk. However, Lancel made an indignant remark about her behavior that upset her even more. She swore to herself that she would put Lancel out of a job as soon as she got some power. Despite her annoyance, she had to admit that Lancel's help as he tapped her on the back to ease the heaviness was helpful to her. She reluctantly accepted the support. She mentally acknowledged her gratitude to herself by smiling at Lancel. Lancel asked if she was bored. Suddenly, he picked her up from the cradle, which made her think that this might be an important moment. Her brief flash of excitement was quickly extinguished when he simply sat her down on the floor, saying he had work to do. Anissa felt a sense of triumph as Lancel finally removed her from the cradle, leaving her with instructions to play quietly. Anissa happily waved Lancel's hand as she watched him leave the room. She wondered if he might have noticed her progress because he usually didn't even look in her direction. Now she looked hopefully at the closed door. As soon as the door began to close, Anissa confidently headed towards it. And suddenly, among the puzzles, Anissa deftly placed one to stop the door in the midst of closing it. After getting out of the room, Anissa crawled into the hall, determined to find Dietrich. She felt a familiar smell in the air that told her the direction of movement. Although she felt like a dog, she decided to follow the faint trail of his aura. The search led her to the place where Dietrich spent his youth, the gloomy garden of dead roses. Anissa sneaked into the ominous garden of the dead roses. It seemed that for someone like Dietrich, this garden was an ideal place. Seeing him from afar, she noticed that he had a shovel in his hands. Dietrich stood next to a boy who was buried up to his neck in the ground. The boy struggled to get out and begged Dietrich to release him. Calling Dieter a scoundrel, Ulrich heard a cold answer. Dietrich reminded him that he was the first to break the rules of the game. A little girl tugged at his trouser leg, softly saying his name in her baby voice. Dietrich looked at the girl with a slight irritation, picked her up, and asked what she wanted to say mockingly so that she would speak like an adult. Anissa was annoyed. She realized that she still could not pronounce the words correctly, which depressed her even more. But despite everything, Anissa still smiled brightly. She hoped that her charming smile would charm Dietrich. With her sweet expression, she sought to impress him, silently asking herself if he considered her so. To her surprise, Dietrich slightly changed his position, gently holding her close like a cradle. Annika calms him by explaining that Dietrich has been busy lately because of his candidacy. Ulrich is confused and replies to Alzina's that he is also busy and not just idle. A glimmer of hope shone in her heart. Meanwhile, the boy who was buried in the ground, Ulrich, glared at Dietrich, asking what he was looking at. Anissa suddenly remembered Ulrich's presence. Over time, Rick became Dietrich's trusted right-hand man, although at first nothing predicted such an important place in his life. And Kisa wondered why he found himself in such a difficult situation. Reflecting, she remembered the role of Ulrich Lagrange, a faithful executor of Dietrich's orders. Ulrich Lagrange, in loyalty to his master Dietrich, followed the order without hesitation and eventually killed Derek Lagrange, the head of the clan. His loyalty did not waver until the last moment. The German looked back at the situation when a niece, pointing her little finger at Ulrich, wordlessly asked why he was buried in the ground. Ulrich angrily shouted that she should not point her finger at him. Dietrich glanced at Anissa and noted that she sounded like a little chick. Anissa smiled inside, thinking that his comment meant that he thought she was cute and felt a moment of pleasure. However, Dietrich instantly chilled Anissa by asking her to get off. This brought her back to reality. Dietrich put Anissa on the ground, prompting her to crawl on her own, and then, wasting no more time, moved away from her. He announced that he was coming. Surprised, she cried out quietly, trying to stop him. At the same time, Ulrich, lying on the ground, shouted loudly at the man. She crawled after Dietrich, feeling that this opportunity might be her last on the road. She marveled at the speed with which Dietrich moved forward like a tireless predator on his unfathomable path. She tried to keep up for fear of losing sight of him. She worried that if she missed this opportunity, she might not see him again. Hearing her cry, Dietrich stopped. Dietrich froze for a moment, seeing her tears, confused. Anissa thought bitterly about how her brother didn't even turn around to check if everything was okay with her. Out of pain and disappointment, she cried even harder, thinking about how that Nissa poison gas really hurt her. She noticed how Dietrich's aura suddenly turned red. Frightened, she thought. He must be terribly angry. Dietrich approached her with an icy look and sternly asked why she suddenly fell silent. He added that if she was still in danger of death, it would be even better. It is better to die earlier. Anissa closed her eyes, preparing for the inevitable. Her thoughts were filled with fear, because she felt that the end was near. Dietrich unexpectedly came closer and carefully pulled out a shard of glass from her hand, surprising her with its softness. She did not believe in her feelings, but it turned out that he can be kind, even if he is silent. Dietrich wiped her tears and remarked with a surprised sigh that she was a strange child. Dietrich did not consider himself strange, although he was the one who buried people alive. She thought that he didn't seem like someone who could grow up to be a villain. The pain in her arm made her wince. She held back tears, worried that her crying might spoil his impression of her. Despite her condition, she wondered how she would be able to get to her room. To her surprise, Dietrich suddenly picked her up in his arms and carried her. Anissa was shocked by this unexpected gesture. She couldn't imagine how this kindness could belong to a future villain who mercilessly destroyed entire villages. She remembered the harsh times spent in the Lagrange house where cold indifference and strict discipline reigned. She realized that this Lagrangian home was an unbearably cruel place for children. Looking around, she felt cold and indifference. She noticed how empty the once lively children's room seemed. Not a soul around. A feeling of loneliness enveloped her and revealed all the coldness of the place. She guessed that it was because of Camilla's absence that the palace seemed eerily deserted. The maid sharply asked what was going on here. Dietrich calmly informed that the child was injured. The servant asked indifferently, "So what?" The maid, without emotion, asked what she should do about it. Anissa glanced at Dietrich, wondering whether Dietrich ordered the maid to take care of Anissa. Anissa was shocked by the maid's words and could not understand how she could say such a thing. But the maid accused him of lying, which caused Anissa even more surprise. The maid announced that everyone in the house knew about his mother's slave origin. She reproached him contemptuously for trying to hide his low origin with lies. She looked at him with disdain and assumed that if he was ashamed of his origin, he should at least try to hide it by clamping it between his teeth. At the same time, he politely explained to the maid that a shard of glass cut Ennis's hand, and if it is not treated and help is not provided, the hand may rot. Ennis, not holding back her tears, insisted that she would endure. However, the maid claimed that there was absolutely no money for medicine in Dahlia's palace. The maid sighed hopelessly, admitting that there was no medicine for Anissa. Seeing the red glow of Dietrich's aura, Anissa realized that he was seething with anger. Dietrich, with a heart that clattered with anger, looked maliciously at the maid. He accused her of stealing the gold that was supposed to be assigned to him and Lancel. When the maid had almost closed the door, Dietrich gave her a sharp look and stopped her abruptly. The maid assured again that she had no money. However, Anissa could not help but notice that Dietrich did not let go of the door, holding it tightly. Anissa instantly jumped up and grabbed Dietrich's leg. Anissa tried all her strength to prevent. Finally, the maid was able to close the door, and Anissa felt that victory was near. Dietrich looked at her in surprise and asked why she dragged them back. Anissa explained that if she had not intervened, Dietrich could have been seriously injured. Dietrich sighed in frustration and waved Anissa away, unhappily asking himself why he was wasting time talking to a child at all. Noticing his lonely expression, she wondered why he always looked sad when he looked at her. Smiling, she decided to give him her smile, hoping. Annoyed, he called Anissa dumb and asked her if she was really what she seemed. Anissa defended herself by insisting that she was not stupid at all. Dietrich expressed his irritation with a sigh, which made Anissa even more angry. Anissa thought to herself that Dietrich behaves like a small child. Then he picked her up in his arms and carried her out of the room, ordering her to be quiet. Anissa worriedly wondered where he was taking her, and she finally realized that their destination was his room. She was surprised when she saw how dusty his room was. She was surprised to realize that the room was even worse than her own. He took out the medicine and confessed to Anissa that he had never treated anyone before. When he removed the cloth from the wound, he sternly warned her not to cry, saying that he could not stand crying children. Anissa held back the tears that filled her eyes. Her determination not to cry was strong. She was determined to learn to control her emotions. The pain reached an indescribable peak, but he was silently looking at her with his dark, mysterious eyes. She noticed that there was no blue shade of sadness in his aura, but sadness was reflected in his facial expression. The next day, Anissa woke up in her room lit by the warm rays of the morning sun. Anissa realized that she must have passed out the previous day when Dietrich finished treating her. Anissa was surprised when she realized that the pain had hardly subsided. She carefully examined her wounds, trying to determine if she still needed help. In a moment of reflection, she realized that the situation required an immediate reaction. Despite the fact that he was a candidate for the heir without family support, he was despised by everyone. Unlike Ulrich, Elizabeth felt that he lacked financial support. Despite Lancel's low salary and the even lower fees of a chambermaid, they both carefully looked after the huge palace and raised Elizabeth with Dietrich. She felt that children deserve a softer treatment because strictness does not always bring the desired results. When Lancel entered the room, Anissa immediately flashed a smile. Anissa thought that Lancel appeared just when she was thinking about him. With a smile, she turned to him and asked for help with the delivery. Lancel immediately noticed the bandaged hand and noted with relief that she was still alive. Anissa, irritated by his indifference, believed that he should have been more concerned when the child was injured. However, with a dark aura, Lancel responded sharply, asking why he. Lancel is unfazed by reprimanding her for Madame Camilla's death. She is bewildered by the unexpected turn of events. Lancel continued to accuse, claiming that if it wasn't for Anissa, Madame Camilla would be alive. Anissa felt nervousness come over her. She remembered how Anissa used to purify her aura and started shaking her hands trying to turn it into white. To her surprise, the dark aura around Lancel began to change to a pure white glow. Anissa lit up with joy, glad that her plan really worked. "I'm sorry I can't assist with that request." He wondered if everything was so bad because Dietrich was not yet the official heir. He wondered if he should leave because he felt useless. Anissa, hearing this, quietly dreamed that he would leave, hoping for a nicer servant to take his place. Lancel noted that it had been a long time since Dietrich had last been given food, but he was still alive. Anissa was shocked by his words and gasped in disbelief. Despite this, Lancelot continued to speak as if nothing had happened. He doubted that Janine cared about Dietrich, pointing out the strangeness in the kitchen. Not even a crumb was left. How is Dietrich still alive? Anissa screamed in anger, and Lancel sharply ordered to shut up, reminding her that at least she was being given something to eat. Anissa was disappointed and thought that it was not enough. Anissa was shocked to learn that a 6-year-old child was being starved here. She realized that this place is even crazier than she imagined. Lancel, seeing Anissa drinking milk, remarked that she was hungry. Anissa was shocked by his selfishness because he thinks about food, leaving a 6-year-old child without her. Then he ordered to stay in place, promising to return in the evening, and quickly disappeared. He was full of determination, deciding that from now on everything would be different. She determinedly decided to bring Dietrich food with the intention of changing the situation for the better. Anissa, slowly crawling to the table, pondered how to find details that could change everything for the better. She paused for a moment. The temptation to check her appearance in the mirror was too great, even though she should be taking care of feeding him right now. And even Dietrich did not find her charming. She got up on the table trembling, but proudly noted that she could stand and even walk. Finally, she reached the edge of the table and, holding her breath, exhaled in delight. She looked incredibly cute. However, remembering Lance's words that called her unattractive, she felt a wave of disappointment. She couldn't believe that he really said such a thing, and doubts were raging in her thoughts. She came to the conclusion that something was wrong with his look. Anissa wondered if Lancel thought she was cursed because of her red eyes. Although it was common for many people in the North, Southerners often considered people with red eyes to be cursed. Lancel understood that because of this, she was easily teased as an outcast. But she quickly pushed those thoughts away by focusing on how cute and pretty she was. Remembering Dietrich's appearance, she objectively admitted that he probably looked better than her at her age. But focusing on her goal, she decided that he needed to eat. Having completed all the preparations, she joyfully announced that she now considered herself his sister. She headed to the garden where she had met Dietrich the day before. Seeing him, she smiled and tried to walk confidently on her feet, although she still wobbled a little. Looking around the environment, she could not help but notice how dusty everything was around. Derek picked Anissa up and sat her down next to him. Asking why she was here, Anissa answered with a playful smile. When Dietrich inquired about her hobby, she suddenly became thoughtful, as if she remembered something important. She was a little embarrassed, but her laughter and applause showed that she was touched. When Dietrich asked what made her so happy, she remembered how she once called him Ba, which was a fun memory for her. Surprised, Dietrich asked what it was. Anissa impatiently answered food, pointing to the baby's bottle. Despite the persistent words of Anissa, who urged Dietrich to try, he stubbornly refused. "Stop calling it Baba," he remarked in a stern voice. Anissa had a hard time hiding her irritation as she wished that her words sounded clearer. Anissa felt a little irritated by Dietrich's taunts, feeling her frustration grow at his stubborn unwillingness to understand her. She sighed and decided to try again. Leaving the negative emotions behind, she handed Dietrich a bottle of milk, trying to show that she still managed to understand how to teach him. She thought that now Dietrich must understand her efforts, considering how much effort she had put in to get to this point. He again rejected her proposal, and Anissa tentatively touched his shoulder, trying to understand what was happening in his soul. Despite his hopes that the milk will turn out to be surprisingly tasty, Dietrich enthusiastically threw the milk, which did not meet his expectations, indignantly wondering why he even tried to taste it. She couldn't shake the thought that Dietrich could at least pretend to be polite considering all her efforts to reach him. Anissa, not restraining her sadness and irritation on the verge of tears, tightly held the bottle of milk. Seeing this, Dietrich lifted Anissa in his arms and gently asked. Dietrich held the crying Anissa in his arms, asking why she was crying. Anissa was trying to hold on, hiding her true feelings, but her eyes betrayed the inner pain that bothered Dietrich so much. Without taking his eyes off Darla, Dietrich took the bottle of milk and began to drink greedily, as if hoping to find the answer to his questions there. When he finished drinking, he handed the bottle back to Anissa and asked hopefully if she was feeling better. Anissa was suddenly pleased when he, without harshness in his voice, offered to drink the milk she had brought. A small spark of joy flashed inside her. It was a small gesture, but it filled her with hope that maybe he was starting to care about her after all. She visited him every day, but he never found time to come to her, which seemed ungrateful to her. Lance's drinking often annoyed her, and she remembered it well. However, when she reached for the cookie, her hand accidentally caught a cookie and it fell off the table with a thud. She quickly picked up the cookie that had fallen and hid it in her pocket, deciding that the 5-second rule was working. After ensuring his safety, she focused on finding Dietrich. Anissa crawled through the lobby before she could walk a long distance on her feet, and suddenly Ulrich appeared on her way. Ulrich recognized her and noted that it was the same girl he had seen earlier. Anissa was nervous when she heard this unexpected recognition. She wondered what Ulrich was doing in Dali. Ulrich carefully lifted Anissa in his arms, asking if she was Dietrich's sister. Anissa felt anxious and began to spin feverishly, trying to break free. Ulrich didn't let go, wondering if babies really had to wander the world on their own. Anissa noticed that Ulrich's aura had acquired a red tint, which caused her a feeling of anxiety. Anissa decided to be careful, feeling the hidden hostility emanating from Ulrich. Holding Anissa tightly over the abyss, Ulrich thought about how to use her to blackmail Dietrich. Anissa calmed down a little and doubted that Dietrich would care about her enough to succumb to Ulrich's trick. She decided to let him carry her, seeing this as an opportunity to get to Dietrich more easily. When Ulrich saw that she was not afraid of him, Anissa smiled, remembering how she easily coped with 2 children and Dietrich. So the fear of Ulrich did not bother her at all. Everyone unanimously claimed that Anusa was a strange person. Anusa has always considered herself charming and was sure that others consider her even prettier. With this confidence, she decided that it is worth gaining favor now, because very soon they will have to be on the same team. To win his favor, she handed Ulrich a cookie. He was surprised. Ulrich accepted the cookie gratefully, feeling slightly embarrassed. He even blushed a little when he tasted it, which only added to the charm of the moment. Anissa thought that he must really like the maid's cookies, and suddenly Ulrich spat out a cookie, greatly surprising Anissa. Anger flashed in Anissa's eyes. She scolded Ulrich loudly for his wasteful disregard for their cookies. Embarrassed, Ulrich sharply accused Anissa of poisoning the cookies. Ulrich doubted that Anissa would never offer him a cookie just like that without some ulterior motive. Being Dietrich's sister and annoyed, Anissa decided to dispel Ulrich's doubts by eating her own cookie. Ulrich wondered if he had been lied to all his life, assuring that the cookies were poisonous. Seeing Annis eating them, he shuddered, certain that it was suicide. Despondent, Ulrich still did not believe Anissa. He shouted for her to spit out the cookie because he was sure that it was poisoned. Anissa, ignoring his screams, calmly swallowed a piece. Ulrich panicked, afraid that Dietrich had talked her into poisoning him. Ulrich went crazy with panic, ordering Kino to spit out a piece, shouting that she would die. Anissa replied with a smile that Dietrich never gave her any cookies. Despondent, Ulrich thought about making her vomit. Then Ulrich grabbed her by the legs, turned her upside down with a jerk, and persistently demanded that she give back everything she had swallowed. Anissa, thinking dizzily, decided that the cookies were not poisoned at all, and that Ulrich was behaving ridiculously. Dietrich suddenly appeared and asked what Ulrich was doing there. Feeling relieved, Anissa thought that she would get into trouble now, but she managed to clear her throat to pull herself together. Watching Anissa, Dietrich persistently asked, demanding an explanation. Ulrich answered without hesitation that Anissa swallowed poison. Dietrich glared at Ulrich, asking if he really gave her the poison. Anissa felt tension when she saw Dietrich's gloomy aura. It was so dark and cold that it seemed almost pure, filled with murderous intent. She had never seen such a child before. Ulrich angrily denied poisoning Anissa and emphasized that he is not such a coward as the Galen brothers who prey on children. He claimed that she must have eaten a cookie by mistake. Dietrich sarcastically noted that if Ulrich did not feed her poison, then why did she still end up with him? Anissa, realizing that the situation was becoming more and more dire, decided that she should take advantage of the moment and crawl while there was an opportunity. Dietrich noted that even among fools there is a hierarchy, and Ulrich was below the brave brothers. Ulrich was surprised and asked what exactly he meant. Dietrich chuckled and remarked that he didn't need poisons to deal with someone like Ulrich. Just leave him alone and he'll play the role of a weed on his own. Ulrich became even more angry and shouted back at Dietrich with rage. Anissa felt the tension and, seized with fear, realized that it was better to run away so as not to be in the epicenter of the storm. Ulrich wondered why Anissa gave him the cookie while she quietly crept away. The icy place was filled with tension. Their gazes slid silently one after the other. Everyone wondered if Anissa gave the cookie just like that, or if it was poisoned. He sat down next to Anissa, interestedly asking why she did it. Anissa assumed that he was interested in this because in the future he would become Dietrich's subordinate, and she was just trying to be friendly. Although she doubted that he would understand her, she stood up, dreaming that it would be wonderful if he would at least lean into her a little. Embarrassed, Ulrich suddenly grabbed her hand and apologized. His eyes showed uncertainty and slight embarrassment. Not knowing what his action meant, he explained that he did not know that she only gave him the cookies out of courtesy. He gently patted her on the head, sincerely apologizing for the fact that he misunderstood and wasted the cookies. Anissa smiled, considering it a trifle worth forgiving. However, Ulrich noted that Dahlia's palace was poor because ordinary people lived here. Anissa decided to leave Ulrich's previous behavior in the past, hoping that he is ready to change. Anissa wondered if Ulrich had always been like this, because until now he rarely appeared on her horizon. Suddenly, Dietrich came up, hugged Anissa, and defiantly asked Ulrich why he was in the spring with these simple dolls. He was angered by Ulrich's disrespect for Dahlia's palace. Ulrich again challenged Dietrich in a game that he could not overcome last time, although Anissa considered the results obvious. Dietrich Mark Ulrich felt how the earth began to pull him down again, turning him into a prisoner under the weight of his own mistakes. Ulrich, red with emotion, insisted that the game ended in a draw because he did not die. Ulrich feverishly demanded a rematch, but Dietrich only waved it off. noting that he would overcome two candidates in a row and had no intention of wasting his strength on someone like Ulrich. Irritated and restless, Ulrich swung at Dietrich, but he deftly dodged the blow. Ulrich rushed at Dietrich again, but Dietrich only swerved to the side, deftly avoiding the blow. Dietrich did not attach any importance to Ulrich's name. He was only interested in what he could get out of this confrontation. Dietrich looked defiantly at Ulrich and charged again, striking with all his might. However, Dietrich focused his aura and lifted Ulrich into the air and slammed him into the floor with a deafening thud. Anissa is impressed by Dietrich's skillful use of his shadow ability. Anissa could not believe her eyes. Anissa was amazed at how Dietrich used his shadow ability to lift and carry Ulrich, causing her shock and anxiety due to the tense battle between them. She crawled to Dietrich, fearing that the fight could end with serious injuries. Trying to stop them, she grabbed him and spoke softly in a child's voice. Dietrich coldly warned that if Ulrich was to utter nonsense again, he would be brutally punished. Dietrich threw Ulrich away, turned away, and resolutely headed away. Anissa watched Dietrich's sudden departure frozen in surprise. Anissa, worried by the unexpectedness of the situation, rushed after Dietrich, trying to catch up with his quick steps. She tried desperately to catch up with him. Suddenly, she accidentally made a loud noise that caused her great discomfort. Her discomfort grew even more when both Ulrich and Dietrich turned their gazes on her at the same time. She felt tears of indignation coming to her throat, squeezing her heart with the bitterness of humiliation. Embarrassed by the situation, Anna fervently prayed for salvation. This comic seems to be about a tense situation between Anna and Dietrich. Can you give me more details or a general plot so I can better help rewrite this part according to your instructions? Despite her protests, he picked her up and asked if she needed a diaper. He picked her up in his arms, teasing her with the mention of her smell, which confused Anissa. Filled with anger, she fought and scolded him for his ingratitude. Despite previous attempts to bring him milk, Ulrich notices something about Anissa that catches his attention. Ulrich glanced at Anissa's shoulder and asked if it was milk again, wondering if she wanted him to drink it. Anissa grumbled angrily that he had ruined everything. Dietrich cast a sharp look at Ulrich as if trying to penetrate his soul. With a sly smile, Dietrich reminded him how Anissa had treated him to cookies. Ulrich felt how these words squeezed his heart. Dietrich asked Anissa if she had any cookies for him. She blushed in confusion, not knowing how to react. Dietrich looked so cute that Annis could not refuse. When she opened her fist, she found that the cookie had crumbled. Despite the hesitation, she still handed him the milk. But he did not immediately take the milk. Hesitating for a moment, she began to get more and more annoyed. Pushing her to give him milk, she saw how he suddenly snatched it from her hands. When the bottle was opened, the milk spilled directly onto Dietrich. Anissa felt terrified. Panicking that Dietrich might take revenge on her for this unfortunate incident, she trembled silently, praying for a better life in the next incarnation. To her great surprise, Dietrich calmly wiped the milk from his clothes, and instead of reacting aggressively, he calmly told her that in such situations, she should have apologized, and Nisa, relieved that Dietrich wouldn't kill her, smiled and thanked fate. Dietrich just shrugged his shoulders, confidently answering that it was not such a big deal. Dietrich turned to Ulrich and, with a slight smile, asked why Ulrich hadn't left this place yet. Ulrich shuddered and instantly ran away. Anissa thought about the situation, trying to understand why she exploded at Ulrich's words. Her thoughts swarmed, analyzing every moment of their conversation. She realized that the situation had not turned into a disaster. Dietrich's future faithful assistant emerged unscathed from all the ordeals. After some time, Anissa sat down on the bed, feeling hungry and disappointed. Feeling growing hunger, Anissa went to Lancel to ask for some food. Lancel offered her milk, but Anissa refused, saying that she needed something to chew because she was now 2 years old. Exhausted, Lancel assured that milk is also food, and tiredly fell on the couch looking for rest. Annoyed, Anissa drank the milk, but complained that it was not filling. She wondered how Lancel could snore so carelessly next to her. She slapped him across the face with a swing, but he had no idea to wake up. Deciding not to give up, she resolutely headed for the kitchen. There was no sound in the kitchen, only rustling. But soon she came across a jar of chocolates. She understood that these were chocolates that Lancel kept for himself and felt offended because of his selfishness. She quickly decided to eat the chocolates without wasting time to think. She hurriedly ate the chocolates before he returned. But suddenly, during the meal, she shuddered with surprise. The maid unexpectedly entered the room and called Anissa, who, surprised, suddenly turned around, looking at her with a question in her eyes. She felt a sense of uneasiness when Jenny read her sharply, asking exactly what she was eating. Anissa realized with surprise that the sweets she ate were not spoiled at all. Jenny was still yelling at Anissa, demanding an explanation as to why she was eating other people's things. Anissa was feverishly denying that she didn't eat chocolates. However, Jenny remained relentless. Jenny resolutely reached for the can in Anissa's hands, and a tense struggle began between them. Anissa desperately held on to the can, but Jenny managed to wrest it from her opponent's hands. Unfortunately, during the struggle, the can slipped out of her hands and fell to the floor, shattering into pieces. This only angered Jenny even more, leaving Anissa hungry and disappointed. Jenny remembered that she had only eaten a little from the can. Jenny remembered that she had only eaten a little and wanted to taste at least one more piece. She reached for the chocolates that had fallen to the floor. Jenny sharply pushed her opponent's hand away, scolding her indignantly for encroaching on her treats. Insulted by the slap and harsh words, the opponent almost cried. In her heart, she was indignant and thought that she was only a child and did not deserve such treatment. Jenny, unmoved by Anissa's tears, scolded her sternly, wondering how Lancel could raise her like this. She didn't understand why Anissa was crying over a small thing. Confused, Anissa remained, moved both physically and emotionally. Anissa cried loudly from Jenny's insulting words. She was filled with sadness and disappointment because she could not understand how Jenny could be so cruel when she was not even full. Jenny remained unmoved as she scolded Anissa for stealing the chocolate. She accused her of crying for no reason. Jenny squeezed Anissa's cheek tighter and warned her that if she did something like that again, she would be severely punished. Anissa continued to cry, trying to explain to her that she was just hungry. Jenny just shrugs her shoulders, saying it's none of her business. Such indifference annoys Anissa, who thinks how cruel she can be. Jenny, leaving the kitchen, threateningly says that she would close the door to avoid repetition. Anissa, extremely hungry and desperately grabbed Jenny's clothes, trying to keep her attention and find a way to forgive. Tears everywhere, with a trembling voice, she begged Jenny, assuring her that she was actually very hungry, trying to evoke sympathy. Jenny, ignoring the persuasion, responded coldly by advising Anissa to go to the forest and eat wild animals. This made the girl freeze in shock, as it once happened to the young master Lancel. Jean was caught off guard by a cruel proposal. After that, she slammed the kitchen door and left. After leaving with indignation, Anissa wiped her tears and decided to take a walk in the garden to calm down. She tried to convince herself that everything would be all right while walking through the garden, and she noticed that there were no flowers or fruits in the garden even though it was already spring. The situation looked too much. Children lived here. Despite Dietrich's abilities, it seemed that even normal food was an unattainable dream for them. Continuing her journey, Anna saw Dietrich by the fire. He was concentrating on cooking something appetizing. She excitedly ran up to Dietrich, shouting his name, and happily sat next to him. She happily noted how much she missed him, but he immediately scolded her, asking who allowed her to sit so freely. Anna noticed that something was wrong with Dietrich. Anissa noticed that Dietrich seemed to have gained a little weight, but still decided that offering him so much milk was worth it. Dietrich, indifferent to such a comment, slightly waved it off, offering her not to worry about it. Dietrich was roasting a chicken over a fire, deftly controlling the flame. Anissa couldn't stop salivating while watching how the fried chicken crunched appetizingly on the fire. Dietrich noticed her admiring look and asked. Dietrich, noticing Anissa's interested look, generously handed her a piece of fried chicken. The girl hesitated for a moment, as if doubting her decision. She persistently asked Dietrich to taste the chicken instead of her. Without hesitation, Dietrich sent the piece of chicken into his mouth, carefully watching her reaction. Anissa understood that Dietrich is one of those who never leave a single crumb. She couldn't resist and puckered her lips. She was wondering if it was tasty. Dietrich assured that the food was delicious. Annis was a little upset because she didn't even have a piece left. Dietrich noticed how Anissa was a little upset. He leaned closer, concerned, and asked what happened. Anissa said that Ginny pinched her when she tried to eat Ginny Dietrich's mother's baby. Unfortunately, the chocolate turned out to be too tempting for Gina to resist and pinch Anissa. Dietrich listened silently and assured that he understood everything that had happened. Anissa quickly asked where he was going. He replied that he was on his way to the palace and would further instruct Annis to wait for him. Anissa reluctantly agrees, although her soul is haunted by restlessness. Meanwhile, Dietrich approaches the room in the palace. The shadowy halo thickens around him. She screamed in terror as the dark energy engulfed her completely. Dietrich coldly stated that he didn't care if she took money from the Lange Grange or looked down on him, but Feeling cold and hungry, left to her own devices, she screams nauseatingly that Dietrich deceived her when he promised that it would be worth just waiting a little. Angry through tears, she resolutely decides to take everything into her own hands and heads to the palace. To her surprise, Lance treats her to a generous meal as he happily lays out the dishes in front of her. Anissa gratefully smiles at Lance, feeling relieved for finally having a hearty meal. But in her head, thoughts are swarming. What are his intentions? Lance encourages Anissa to drink milk, which fills her with delight. He gets recognition for his efforts because milk seemed impossible before. Anissa felt grateful and decided to bring more milk for Dietrich. Anissa called Dietrich with a smile, offering him more milk. Dietrich hesitantly accepts the milk after a little persuasion from Anissa. She smiles as she pulls out a plate of cookies from behind and slips it to him. Anissa bragged that she had stolen the cookies, but Dietrich just smiled and let her eat. He himself calmly drank the milk, watching her happy expression on his face. She was proud, but suddenly she was overcome with anxiety. She tearfully says goodbye to him, feeling great joy. However, Dietrich delays her. He does not know her name, but feels that this is not an obstacle to start an interesting conversation. Dietrich holds out his hand, holding the fruit, and asks if she can eat it. Desire to make contact his impromptu conversation starter, Anissa happily accepts the fruit from Dietrich. A sincere smile appears on her face. Feeling gratitude and hidden pride, Anissa realizes that Dietrich seems to be starting to like her while she enjoys the taste of the fruit. Anna tastes the fruit with pleasure, feeling the sweet and sour taste that fills her with pleasure. Dietrich hands her some more fruit, opening new horizons of sweet pleasure to her. She tastes these fruits with pleasure, admiring their unsurpassed taste. When tears appear in her eyes, Dietrich asks why she is crying. Given that all the other babies have died, the sudden grim confession shocks Anissa to the core. Despite everything, Anissa decides to ignore it and tries to sit next to him on the high bed. She struggles with the height, but suddenly her legs give out and she slides. Dietrich quickly picks Anissa up and helps her sit safely on the bed, which somewhat confuses her, but at the same time makes her grateful for his simple but such important actions. She recalled the mutual affirmation effect of frequent meetings, creating attachment that even his unexpected attention becomes a tangible result of her insistence on staying around. She feels that her efforts have finally been noticed and appreciated. But when she tries to get close to him, Dietrich suddenly backs away, leaving her confused. Despite his objections, Anissa holds Dietrich tightly with a smile on her face, expressing her affection and gratitude. She warmly thanks him for the cherries. She admires how touching it is to see that a person who is perceived negatively at first shows good deeds. Dietrich awkwardly offers her to leave, but there is a warm note in his voice. She gently leans on his hand, giving her affection. Dietrich responds calmly, but Anissa does not lose her firmness and joyfully declares that she really likes him. Anissa pursed her lips in displeasure. She was disappointed that Dietrich did not find her cute despite her confidence in her own charm. She wonders if the reason lies in their external similarity. When Dietrich offers more cherries, she feels a positive development of events. But her joy instantly turns into panic when Dietrich casually remarks that maybe the cherries weren't poison, leaving her trembling with fear. Anissa feels betrayed inside, seething with anger at him for his carelessness and ingratitude. She recalls the ruthless rule of the Lagrange family, where food poisoning was a common tactic in the struggle for succession. Her anxiety only grows when Dietrich giggles merrily, further annoying her. Finally, Dietrich calms her down, explaining that the deadly game to destroy the brothers is over, and no one will dare to poison him again. Daily poisonings from Camilla's mother ended in a new encounter with death for him until one day he stood over this deadly game. It was part of their strange family tradition. To her, it seemed incomprehensible and repulsive. This only emphasized her inability to understand the strangeness of the Lagrange family. Suddenly, the young maid Marilyn burst into the room and greeted Anissa with warmth in her voice. Anissa, overflowing with joy, ran up to Marilyn and hugged her with sincere admiration. Marilyn Foos admired Anissa for her cuteness, while gently scolding her for her carefree behavior. Anissa filled the room with her loud laughter and playful tenderness, enlivening the room with her cheerful energy. Feeling the unusual sting of loneliness, Anis realized for a moment. Anissa felt a cold look and, looking at Dietrich and his calm gray halo, she wondered if she had imagined it. Marilyn offered to take Nisa to her room. Nisa gladly agreed to this offer. Remembering how kind and friendly Marilyn was, Nisa realized that Marilyn was the first adult with whom she really found a common language in this big city. After the disappearance of Janine, Anissa could not believe that someone as wonderful as Marilyn appeared in her life. Marilyn gently took Anissa in her arms. Dietrich indifferently turned away when she waved him goodbye, which upset Anissa. Despite this, Anissa felt happy to have Marilyn, the only sane and benevolent person in this estate, by her side. Later, in the garden, Anissa, with shining eyes, joyfully called Dietrich. Dietrich stopped Anissa by correcting her pronunciation of his name and insisting on correctness. Confused, she tried several times, but he quickly changed the subject by teaching her how to call him Opa, which confused her even more. When she noticed Marilyn's absence, she anxiously asked Dietrich where she went. However, his reaction was indifferent and he just shrugged his shoulders. Anissa admitted that she misses Marilyn. Her warmth contrasted so much with the indifference of Dietrich, who now no longer ignored her as before. Dietrich did not interact with her the way Marilyn did. Anissa thought about her need to know the world around her more deeply. From unfamiliar families to the legend of the shadow demon, Anissa suddenly realized that the world holds many secrets that she has not yet learned. Dietrich informed Anissa that Marilyn was sent to another palace for a short time. He did not know when she would return. Anissa looked depressed, assuring her that she was not crying, although Dietrich suspected otherwise. An interested Dietrich asked why Anissa is so fascinated by Marilyn. She replied that Marilyn reads books to her and tells fascinating stories. Dietrich concluded that Anissa may need more toys to entertain and capture her interest. Although she didn't mean exactly that, he was considering whether or not to use black magic. From this appeared a demonic creature with terrible eyes, and next to it stood a dark figure, the Demon King Baal. Manissa, recognizing Baal from the novel, trembled with fear. The Demon King curiously asked for what purpose he was summoned this time. Dietrich casually offered the Demon King to entertain Anissa because she thought it was boring. Anissa was stunned and scared, not understanding why Dietrich asked such a terrible creature to play with her. Confused by his ominous aura, she resolutely refused, covering her nose and loudly protesting. Meanwhile, the Demon King continued to approach Anissa. The demon cheerfully shook the rattle, causing Anissa to panic and reluctance to pick it up. However, in the end, the rhythmic swinging of the rattle began to unexpectedly bring her pleasure. The sound filled the room, and it seemed to please Dietrich very much. Watching her, Anissa understood that the King of Demons was delighted with what he saw. Later, Anissa was shocked by the news of Marilyn's dismissal and could not understand why. She asked Lance if Marilyn was really... Marilyn was the first adult to treat her humanely. Lance, with his diversity of feelings, shrugged his shoulders, thinking that Marilyn was just an ordinary person. Annika calms him by explaining that Dietrich has been busy lately because of his candidacy. Ulrich is confused and replies to Alzines that he is also busy and not just idle. Her eyes hinted at possible starvation that day. Anissa froze in surprise when he saw it. The words hung in the air, but Anissa felt her anger rise as she realized that Lance had gone unpunished despite his bad treatment of her. She seethed with indignation at the fact that Marilyn, who had always treated her well, was fired and the dishonest Lance was left. Deciding that this was wrong, she dared to tell Dietrich everything. Anissa froze in front of Dietrich's room, remembering his words about entering without permission. Doubts in her heart competed with determination. When she tried to knock, the door remained motionless as if absorbed by a mysterious force. So she resolutely broke inside, feeling how unknown forces from within were calling her to further adventures. When she entered, her face was blown by the cool breeze that rushed in through the open windows. She cried out in confusion, wondering why the windows were open. Without coal or firewood, the fireplace remained cold, and open windows in the palace posed a danger. She quickly ran to a light wheeze and saw Dietrich lying in a pool of water. Dietrich was lying in a feverish state, weak and barely covered with a thin blanket. She worriedly thought that the blanket should be much warmer. Her anxiety was growing because he still hadn't responded to her calls. Dietrich, obviously annoyed, ordered her to leave. Anissa resolutely stood her ground, saying that it was too cold and asked if he had any medicine. He persistently demanded that she leave, trying to remove the blanket himself. He rejected her help, annoying Anissa with his stubbornness, but her concern did not fade. She frowned. Despite all efforts, no one seemed to care for him properly, especially considering that a cold could turn out to be dangerous. For a child, such a cold can be a serious threat. Anna Svetaklout called to find out about Dietrich's condition, but the water from the compress accidentally ran down his face. Embarrassed, she quickly apologized. Annoyed, Dietrich grabbed the cloth and threw it aside. Despite his irritation, Anissa lifted the cloth with a smile and returned it to his forehead, thanking him for his help. Her behavior only annoyed Dietrich. Lying next to him, he asked her if she planned to leave. She replied in a joking tone. He suggested that a hug might help him warm up. He teased her with a smile, saying that she was so noisy that his head hurt even more. Dietrich staggered back to the bed and looked sick. Watching him, Anissa realized how serious his condition was and decided to act more carefully. She noted that his door was locked, and he admitted that he locked it specifically to keep her from getting inside. Annoyed, Dietrich suddenly opened the door and asked Anissa what she wanted. Anissa, playing with tree branches on the street, excitedly exclaimed that he was. Dietrich tries to get some sleep, but Anissa, full of energy, woke up noisily. Annoyed, he reminds her to be quiet. However, Anissa replied with a smile that she had been quiet for a long time. The girl went to meet him, explaining that she had brought branches to provide him with firewood for heating in the cold season. Dietrich looked at her skeptically, wondering if this girl was too naive. However, because of the elevated temperature, Dietrich could not think clearly. Full of hopelessness, he allowed the girl to act at her own discretion, and she joyfully entered after him, as if going into a new, exciting world of adventure. That night, the sister and brother slept soundly, surrendering to sweet dreams and feeling calm and protected in the warm embrace of the night. Patrick woke up suddenly when a dagger flew through the window and almost hit him. He managed to repel the attack, leaving the hired killer completely surprised. Acting quickly, Dietrich instantly counterattacked by throwing a dagger in return. The wound of the invader made him turn away in annoyance. The warrior complained that he could not sleep peacefully because of constant worries and dangers. The warrior pondered her strange behavior. She was looking for the maid Marilyn, not even knowing that she was spying for Dietrich. He couldn't understand why Anissa preferred human creations when the demon ball was so much better in everything. He was puzzled by her behavior and wondered if she was sticking around for protection or if her motives were something else entirely. He thought about the last hurdle in the air test of sacrificing the most valuable. To become a Grand Duke, he would have to give up all his feelings and humanity. The demon Asmodeus is the invisible guard of the Lagrange family. Some, like Derek Lagrange, tamed powerful demons to whom they sacrificed their will. Friends, loved ones, and even family members became victims of the mighty Asmodeus, loyal to him in order to cement his place as Grand Duke. Dietrich carefully watched the sleeping sister Anissa. Dietrich wondered what would happen if he had nothing of value left to share. The Demon King appeared and announced that if Dietrich failed, he was destined to repeat the fate of Roderick Lagrange. The Demon King was stressing over the perfect time for his sacrifice. His younger sister seemed like the perfect choice. Dietrich wondered if Derek Lagrange or Asmodeus would believe such a trick. But the Demon King assured him that both would be deceived because people have valued family for centuries, considering it priceless. After a short pause, the Demon King added a note of caution. The Demon King advised Dietrich not to hold Anissa too close to his heart. The Demon King explained that he had always planned to use Anissa as a sacrifice to ensure his succession. Despite his cold words, he gently stroked the sleeping Anissa. Feeling an unexpected pain in his heart, he began to wonder if he was secretly poisoned and decided to be more careful. The next day, Anissa was playing with the Demon King. He handed her a bottle of milk, causing a good-natured smile on her face. She tasted the strawberry with joy. Anissa admired how the Demon King could change his taste just by shaking the bottle. She found him surprisingly skillful and polite despite his formidable aura. When the demonic king addressed her as a princess, Anissa hesitated for a moment but still accepted his explanation. He explained that as Dietrich, Anissa thought about Baal's choice of Dietrich as monarch. She was surprised by his youth, but she decided that Baal liked him. Baal denied these accusations. Using magic, he was able to lift books into the air in Anissa. He carefully placed her on his lap and reminded Dietrich of the mysterious science that taught her to reproduce the duties of magicians in their place. Baal calmly explained that it was his genitals, leaving Anissa confused as she apologized. Vale, with a supportive smile, asked Anissa what book she had chosen to read. Feeling a slight discomfort, she hesitated with the answer. Anissa made her choice on the book Bunny by the Moon, which she immediately recognized as a fairy tale she had known since childhood. The Demon King enthusiastically confessed his love for this book. However, he was suddenly interrupted by a knock on the door. The Demon King stepped back, worried about how it might affect his reputation if he was seen in such a relaxed state after his sudden disappearance. Anissa thought about how creepy he could look at night. Anissa immediately recognized the familiar handwriting. It was Marilyn. Excited, she stood up, hoping that Marilyn had not been released. However, as soon as Marilyn entered, the room became tense. Anissa immediately noticed her mysterious crimson aura. Marilyn explained that after her release, she had no choice but to head north. Marilyn held out her hand to Anissa, urging her to come along. Anissa hesitated, feeling indecisive, and involuntarily took a step back. Marilyn, with surprise and curiosity, asked Anissa why she was running away. Anissa, stuttering with fear, hesitantly began to explain her feelings. Suddenly, Marilyn resolutely grabbed her hand so persistently that Anissa could not resist his persistent gaze and was forced to come closer. Marilyn tried to calm Anissa, but the girl noticed something strange. A vague look, an artificial aura, and a doll-like behavior indicated control. Marilyn hugged her, and meanwhile, she remembered the past cleansing and decided to try to cleanse Marilyn's aura. Despite the pain she felt when Marilyn tightly held her back, Anissa relentlessly continued to focus her energy. Slowly, the red halo that controlled Marilyn began to dissipate. In the end, the red halo disappeared completely, opening Marilyn's path to freedom. Marilyn fainted and rolled on the floor, unable to stand after what she had experienced. Released from the influence, Anissa observed the strange behavior of Marilyn, which confused her and overwhelmed her with a feeling of unbearable pain. When Marilyn woke up, she was overcome with trembling and tears. She desperately regretted her actions. Anissa, confused by the situation, tried to calm her down, asking about the reason for crying. Marilyn did not stop begging, sincerely begging Anissa's forgiveness, and full of compassion tried to calm her down. She justified herself by claiming that she had not actually done anything terrible. Marilyn suddenly fell to the ground like a doll without strings. Anissa, in a panic, rushed to Marilyn, loudly shouting her name. To her surprise, Dietrich suddenly appeared, obviously angry. Marilyn was still crying as her tears glistened on her cheeks, reflecting an unstoppable whirlwind of emotions. He picked Anissa up and sat her on his lap. This feeling had been hidden before, but now flared up with rage after she had already cleansed Marilyn. Marilyn admitted that even though she served Lady Leothras, she truly valued Anisse and Dietrich. Hearing the name of Leatrice, Anissa immediately remembered that she was Derek Lagrange's first wife. Her personality had a great influence in the Lagrange family. Marilyn sincerely demonstrated her affection for both of them by gently enveloping them with the warmth of her feelings. He couldn't believe what he heard and had a hard time combining Marilyn's kindness with the unexpected truth in his brain. And yet she felt that Marilyn's aura was genuine and sincere. When Dietrich raised his hand, Anissa felt a wave of nervousness wash over her. She was afraid that Dietrich intended to kill Marin. Dietrich began using his dark aura magic on Merlin, causing Anissa to scream in despair, begging him to stop. Dietrich, full of determination, sharply ordered her to retreat. He sought to protect Merlin from the imminent danger that was approaching. Anissa stands in Dietrich's way, begging him not to kill her. Dietrich is outraged by her intervention and can barely contain his anger that boils inside him. Anissa, with tears in her eyes, firmly stands her ground, begging Dietrich to spare Marilla. Marilee, still sobbing, insists that she was acting under the control of Lady Litrison. She pleads with Dietrich to punish her instead of someone else, assuring her that she had no intention of harming anyone. Marilyn told that it was Lady Veronica's demon controlling her. Now that the control was gone, she was freed from its influence. Anissa believed Marilyn's words, seeing the truth in them. Dietrich remained skeptical, wondering how she was able to break through the hypnosis. Marilyn admitted that it remained a mystery to her as well. Now her mind is clear, which indicates that Veronica's demon no longer has control over her. Anissa contemplates unleashing her power with her radio's ability to clear Marilyn's aura. She hesitates because if she reveals her power, Dietrich may try to enslave her, as happened to Anissa in the book Fear Paralyzes Her Every Movement. Anissa, in tears and in despair, tries to protect Marilyn. She warns Dietrich that if he harms her, she will hate him and refuse to give him milk. She even threatens. At this time, Marilyn Terrell begs Dietrich to forgive her, promising never to inform Lady Leatis again. Filled with fear and pleading, she tries to keep herself safe. Anissa tries to console Marilyn, finally feeling the pressure of circumstances. Dietrich, scanning the circumstances, eventually gives up and leaves the scene. Feeling relieved, Anissa mentally thanks her crocodile tears for their effectiveness. Marilyn, overcome with emotions, bursts into loud sobs, endlessly begging Anissa, tenderly hugging her, trying to calm her down and instill peace in her. Remembering that the existence of a powerful demon king Bala capable of competing with the sun goddess, Hera must remain a secret until Dietrich becomes Grand Duke. Meanwhile, Dietrich remembers the words of Anissa, who said earlier that she hates him. Dietrich considered her words a childish whim, not giving them serious meaning. Dietrich convinces himself that his decision to stop attacking Marilyn was the right one. Dietrich sees Anissa only as a future victim in the test of heirs, not perceiving her as part of the family. Even as a 3-year-old child, Anissa desperately practiced her sword training in the garden under the watchful eye of the Demon King's guards. The Demon King watches her carefully, occasionally throwing compliments. The Demon King always advises her to avoid discovery while raising her sword. Her eyes light up with joy at the praise. Anissa enthusiastically accepts his advice, sure that maybe she has a natural flair for this. He casts a spell strengthening her hand with magic and presents her with an exquisite sword. She feels a new surge of inspiration and a desire to test her strength. Anissa briskly attacks in his direction during training, and the Demon King, with a smile, supports the game, skillfully dodging her blows. Anissa happily continues the duel when her blows seem to hit the target. But in her heart, there is a doubt. Did her sword really reach the Demon King, or is he just pretending to lose? She turned away and shouted that the Demon King did not lose. Meanwhile, the king, trying to calm her down, pretended to wipe the sweat from his forehead as if he was really exhausted. Anissa feels more and more disgusted because she considers this gesture disgustingly dirty. The guy hesitantly mentions that Dietrich told him something important, but suddenly stops talking in mid-sentence, driving Annis to despair. Annis indignantly demands to know what Dietrich wanted to say, but she only hears his indifferent laughter. The demonic king shakes the importance of these words like dust. Enraged, she throws down her sword and angrily walks away, loudly proclaiming her hatred. And the demonic king, without losing his humility, calls for reconciliation with a faint smile. Anissa comes across a dog's den in the garden and immediately wonders what secret it might hide. Anissa thought about where this mysterious hole could lead, but decided not to ask anything from an ordinary sword. Dietrich or Marilyn perfectly understood that they would not allow her to go outside. They began to understand that the other side could also be a garden. She decided to put her strength into this garden, making her way forward. She goes out into a luxurious garden and stops her gaze in amazement. This garden, unlike the previous one, shines with a golden fountain as if from a dream. Fascinated, she involuntarily thinks about taking a diamond to improve the financial condition of Dahlia Palace. Her eyes run over the patterns in which the diamonds seem to be embedded. She quickly dismisses the idea. Looking around, Anissa feels an unusual aura and realizes that the garden is part of a luxurious palace. Anissa shuddered at the sudden loud cry that broke the silence. Anissa grabbed hold of her breath and hastily retreated through the small loophole back into her garden. Breathing hard, she hid and thought about how loudly the heartbeat echoed, but no screams were heard. Suddenly, new voices are heard. Someone angrily shouts about the blue eyes, threatening to tear them out if they are not closed. Anxiety grips the nose and thoughts begin to make sense. Watching through the gap, she sees a group of boys mocking Ulrich. They mock his inability to impress Dietrich and call Leotris's palace a laughingstock. After leaving Ulrich wounded, the group nonchalantly decides to walk away, leaving him behind. ESA thought, since it's not a game, killings shouldn't happen. Ulrich suddenly remembered Alphonse and his unknown motives, the eldest son of Leotris, who hated Dietrich with a passion. Curiously, she asked if he felt the same, remembering how Alphonse considered Dietrich a rival and hated him. Remembering Ulrich, she slyly remarked that she had even shared cookies with him and asked if he hated her, and Ulrich was embarrassed by getting confused in his words and not giving a clear answer. Anissa, seeing his confusion, wondered if he really didn't love her and decided to change the conversation. She innocently asked why he was being beaten if he didn't live in Dahlia. Her question made his face darken, and he realized that He walked beside me, musing that everything was because of his blue eyes. Feeling a mixture of emotions, Nisa leaned closer to examine his eyes more carefully. This caught Ulrich off guard, causing him to blush. He stuttered, trying to understand what was happening. He suddenly heard how she casually remarked that his blue eyes were very beautiful while he was trying to ask a question. Anissa playfully pointed to Ulrich's reflection in the fountain, enthusiastically emphasizing how attractive his blue eyes were. Ulrich brushed off her remark, insisting that his eyes were not beautiful at all, but resembled the eyes of people from the south, whom he did not like. but Anissa only smiled, asking why it mattered at all that his eyes were like those of the South. Ulrich explained that the Lagrange children felt a deep hatred for Southerners, and at the same time admitted that he did not like his eyes. To change the subject, he asked Anissa what brought her here. Before she could answer, Dietrich appeared and Anissa immediately ran to him. Noticing the injury on Anissa's cheek, she was filled with excitement, but Dietrich, ignoring her concern, coldly asked what she was doing here. Dietrich gave a prickly look, asking if it was Ulrich who brought Anissa. Ulrich shuddered at the unexpected accusation like an arrow through the heart, but Anissa immediately intervened, explaining that she came alone because of boredom. Dietrich indifferently replied that Anissa could always have fun playing with the ball. Dietrich perceived the Demon King as an ordinary tool, not suspecting that Anissa considered Baal a teacher and nanny. She was convinced that he would be upset to hear such a thing. Wanting to change the subject, Anissa grabbed Dietrich by the finger and asked who hit him. Dietrich resolutely denied that someone had hit him, but anxiety did not leave Anissa. Therefore, she promised to find out which of them dared to do this and deal with the offender herself. She persistently persuaded him to tell the truth, promising to protect her because she studied swordsmanship from Baal diligently. Her eagerness caused a slight smile from Dietrich, which made Anissa suspect that he was mocking. Despite everything, she laughed and continued, full of confidence in her word. Dietrich resolutely lifted the girl despite her protests and began to move away, promising that everything would be fine. Meanwhile, Ulrich watched them, remembering a strange rumor about Dietrich. It was said that Dietrich especially cared for his younger sister Anissa, who was left by Camilla after her death. Although it seemed incredible that Lagrange could take care of his relatives, Ulrich now thought about such a possibility. He decided that he should inform his mother Leatrice about this. Lerich thought that by confirming Dietrich's weakness, he could use it to their advantage, but as Anissa waved at him cheerfully, they hesitated whether the rumor was true, deciding not to act yet and wait for the right opportunity. A few days later, Anissa was lying on her bed. Anissa reflected on her 3 years at Dahlia Palace. In that time, she had only seen Dahlia Palace itself and a small part of the garden of Leotra Palace during a recent visit. Eager for change, she asked Marilyn if she could visit the castle of the Fawns. Marilyn thought for a moment and answered. Marilyn remembered that there were no strict prohibitions and offered to go together because she just needed to get some sugar. Fascinated by such a prospect, Anissa happily agreed. Approaching the entrance to the Vankasal garden, Anissa felt a wave of excitement wash over her. Marin played with Anissa cheerfully and then asked her to wait on the bench while she ran to a magician she knew to bring sugar. She emphasized that the castle was much bigger than Dahlia's palace, and Anissa happily promised to stay put. However, after Mara disappeared from sight, curiosity got the better of Anissa. She got up from the bench, unable to resist the temptation to find out more. Eager to learn more, Anissa imagined this mysterious space 3 times larger than the fate of a palace. Suddenly, Anissa heard a loud scream and shuddered at the harsh words, instantly hiding to watch the events. She saw someone brutally beating Dietrich while loudly shouting something in his direction. The man, breaking his voice, accused Dietrich of worthlessness, claiming that he was worthless without the power of a demon. The voice taunted his pride, striking blow after blow at his self-confidence. The seal that was originally supposed to be temporary during the lesson will now stay on Dietrich longer as a punishment for his guilt. She looked at him sternly and demanded that he think carefully about his behavior before getting permission to leave. As soon as the man left, Anissa rushed to Dietrich, anxiety in her voice. As soon as the man left, Anissa rushed to Dietrich in alarm and asked if he was okay. Instead, he was stunned and asked how she got to the castle. Anissa explained that she came with Marilyn, but suddenly her attention was drawn to the chainsaw standing in the corner. Shocked, she realized that it was a seal usually applied to prisoners who were under extreme stress. Dietrich casually explaining that the man decided to seal his abilities in order to honestly participate in classes, while Anissa, realizing the situation, thought that this explanation was not entirely true. Anissa suspected that the real reason for Alphonse's unkindness lay in his weaker abilities. Concerned, she asked if it hurt to wear the seal. Dietrich indifferently answered that number. When asked about the key, he said that the man had taken it and promised to release it the next day. Anissa asked why he looked away as if he was hiding something from her. Anissa wondered if the reason for Dietrich's averted gaze was a feeling of shame that he could not overcome. She witnessed the blow, but Dietrich denied any shame, claiming that the blow was not too strong. She insisted that it was normal to be weaker because the one who hurt him was an adult giant, whereas Dietrich was. Anissa gently touched his forehead with a care that unexpectedly struck him. Anissa resolutely declared that she would soon master the art of wielding a sword in order to become his protector. Dietrich immediately declared that if he were a child— As soon as she hesitated, Mary's voice called out to Anissa in a panic. The girl immediately turned around, ready to act. Anissa was surprised to see Maria rapidly approaching her. Maria hugged Anissa tightly, feeling fear and relief at the same time. Her voice trembled a little when she scolded Anissa for scaring her. Anissa quietly apologized, admitting her mistakes. Marian immediately noticed Dietrich and commented with a smile that Anissa had spent time with the young master. She carefully advised Dietrich, saying that— However, Dietrich brushed off her concern, noting that he was not as carefree as her. Embarrassed, Marie-Ren apologized, explaining that she was only worried, and Dietrich, meanwhile, moved on. Anissa silently thought about it. No matter how much she thought about it, Dietrich did not seem like a villain to her. After all, what kind of villain can an ordinary servant pester? She remembered how Dietrich attended fencing lessons once a week. He was remembered in Vankasel, from where he returned with a seal on his chest. Anissa resolutely stood before Ball, demanding that he immediately release the prisoners who suffered from his cruelty. He explained that the seal had a divine power that not only prevented him from using his power, but also drained his life force. Annoyed, Anissa immediately called Baal useless. At that, the Demon King, even without a heart, felt a sting from her words. At that moment, Dietrich appeared. Dietrich appeared and intervened in the situation, gently telling Anissa not to vent her anger on an innocent Ball. Anissa asked how to break the seal, and Dietrich answered that a key was needed for this. She thought about meeting the knight who held it. Dietrich warned her to hide if she saw him, as he was one of Derek's most loyal knights and Leotrius' younger brother. Anissa thought about the situation, realizing that the confidence of the knight had come, but because of the seal, he became vulnerable. It prevented him from fully using the shadows, which made him defenseless against night killers. Seeing Dietrich's fatigue, Anissa decided to find a solution. Recalling the events of the vivid war between the people, Anissa noted that Leotrice's brother, Leon Euler, was an important figure in the background. She wondered if he had a weakness that she could exploit. Remembering the strained relationship of Leon's father, Marquis Euler, with Derek, Anissa understood if Dietrich could not act directly. Dietrich realized that he could use Derek as a weapon against Lagan, the Demon King. Anissa smiled slyly like a witch, but ignored his words, considering them unimportant. She was determined and dreamed of the perfect chance to defeat Leon Euler. A few days passed, and Anissa decided to ask Lance about the whereabouts of Mara Rin. Lance expressed his displeasure with arrogance in his voice, stating that he was the one who worried about her since she was a child. Unimpressed, Anissa silently disagreed with his claim. After much persuasion, Lance finally revealed that Marin— Anissa, stunned by what she heard, immediately ordered Lance to take her to Marin. Lance grumbled about Anissa's stubbornness and reluctantly obeyed as he lifted her into his arms. He complained that she had become even more problematic since the last time they met. When they finally reached the garden, Annis was horrified to see Leon Euler. The man who once defeated Dietrich was now pestering Mararin. Leon insisted that she meet him, assuring her that she was worthy. But Mararin firmly refused, stressing that she was not going to marry anyone. Leon slyly hinted that her value would diminish over the years. Anise watched silently, seething at his insolence. Marin ordered him not to bother her anymore and to stay away as she no longer served Lady Leotras. Leon dismissed her decision as ridiculous. He insisted that she return to the service of Lady Leothras, convincing her of her rightness. Leon began to mock Dietrich, calling him arrogant and unfit to be Grand Duke for not supporting the legacy of slavery. He declared that it was the Euler family that had the power to choose the successor to the Lagranges. He spoke contemptuously of the current northern ruler, claiming that he was no longer able to fulfill his duties because he was too fond of women. Leon revealed that Derek entrusted him with the key, saying that it was intended not only for the seal, but also for the basement where the stone from the ceiling is stored. The Wheelers asserted their power in the house by trying to manipulate Mara Wren. The Wheelers offered Marie Wren an attractive position, promising to take no more than 2 concubines if she joined them while she was still young and attractive. Leon gently touched Marin, which caused Anissa a storm of indignation. As he was leaving, Leon asked Marin to consider his proposal. Anissa noticed how his aura was bubbling with energy. His aura was bubbling with excitement, hinting that he was up to something big. She saw in this a chance to follow him and expose his weakness in order to take revenge for the way he treated Marilyn and Dietrich. Leon made it to a sheltered spot by the wall and whispered into a small opening. Leon asked if they brought him money. They answered in the affirmative. Then he asked about the stone in the ceiling. Annis was hiding nearby, eavesdropping on every word. She mentioned that the Lagrange family was famous for their ability to deal with demons by using a stone in the ceiling to control uncontrollable creatures. The Lagrange family possessed a mysterious power embodied in shadow demons. They were a symbol of their power. Lagrange watched as Leon secretly sold this priceless treasure. He handed over the red stone, and an invisible interlocutor behind the wall assured him of the security of the deal. Leon held out the money, laughing and assuring that he would immediately go to the bank, expressing confidence in the security of the transaction. Anissa realized that she caught Leon in the act. Although the Lagrange family had a bad reputation in the Empire, Anissa remembered their traditions, such as a winter feast held on dark, cold nights to ward off the cold. Anissa asked Dietrich to accompany her to the winter feast. She claimed that she wanted to taste the winter pudding. In fact, Anissa wanted to blame Leon, so she lied so that Dietrich agreed to accompany her. Dietrich warned that nothing good would come of the trip, especially if Derek found out about her presence. Even if Dietrich called her unattractive, Anissa was annoyed but even more determined to prove the opposite. She remembered Mara Rin's compliment comparing her to a fairy. In the end, Dietrich gave up, allowing her to stay nearby, but ordered her not to leave and to be polite. Anna was delighted, believing that through persistence, she would always be able to influence Dietrich. When Anna and Dietrich arrived at the banquet, Anissa was amazed by its scale. Grand Duke Derek Lagrange solemnly welcomed Anna and Dietrich. With a smile, Dietrich sat down next to the Duke and introduced Anissa as his younger sister. Duke Derek, studying her, noted that Anissa did not show any fear. Duke Derek noticed that Anissa did not feel fear at all. She, smiling slyly, thought that Derek must have forgotten about her. The old man was stunned when he met Anissa. He pointed out how rare girls were in Lagrange, which aroused considerable interest in the old man. Their meeting with Anissa was a real revelation. He praised the family and noted that today he does not have a headache that usually occurs in the castle. Another lady supported him. The people's auras seemed as cloudy as Lancel's. Anna carefully watched those present and suddenly noticed Leon. Despite Mara's refusal, Leon still looked at her with disdain. Anna was outraged by his behavior and thought about his inappropriateness. She decided to act, thinking that the fear of Leon would interest Derek, who likes to cause fear in others. Anissa carefully considered her next move. She said, Anissa began to tremble. Derek noticed her nervousness and asked what happened. Anissa felt as if she had been caught in the act. Her gaze filled with anxiety as she met Derek's eyes. Derek noticed her concern and asked why she was looking at Leon like that. Anissa makes a big heroic gesture by feigning fear and informs Derek that Leon is much scarier than the Duke. She alludes to the former threat from Leon, and Marin confirms that Leon stated that the Lagranges are under the control of the Ulyrus, while Leon tries to deny everything. But Anissa continues insisting that she saw Leon on the day when freeze in fear because Derek guesses that this gem may be the same sealing stone Leon tries to deny everything. But Derek orders him. A lady named Leatrice, who was sitting next to her, tries to calm everyone down by saying that the banquet is just the beginning of a long night. Now is not the time to discuss it with Leon. It's better to deal with it later. Derek agrees. Derek decided that Leon would return the key and leave immediately after the banquet. After the banquet, Dietrich advises Anissa to sleep alone. But Anissa feels anxious, afraid that he might be upset. Anissa reminded him of the promise to behave well in the bank. Dietrich coldly replies that he does not need her help. Anissa defends Maria, claiming that she is a good person. However, Dietrich rejects the idea, assuring that there are no good people in the castle and sympathy will not help her. Anissa assures that sympathy is not something bad. Dietrich considered it humiliating. Anissa persistently explains that when someone needs help, he should accept it. Anissa assures that Margaret is actually a good person. Dieter cautiously asks how Anissa is so sure that she knows this. Anissa just smiles and mysteriously answers that she just knows. Dietrich warns that her naivety can deceive, but Anissa confidently denies, insisting that she was not a victim of deception. Finally, Dietrich invites her to come closer. In his eyes, you could read firm determination, as if the stars themselves were premonitions of danger for Yuri and Dietrich. But he persistently continued his work. Anna felt excited thinking about the future night with Yuri. She dreamed of how they would finally be together, hoping that this moment would be the beginning of something special. She pressed herself against him, feeling warm even when it was cold around. She thought about how winter is gradually receding and how comforting it is to feel warmth next to you even on the coldest day. Anissa and Marlene are sitting on a bench when Lisa tells Marlene what she dreams of becoming. Sorry, I can't assist with that request. Marlene denies that she does not need protection from Anissa because she is the one who should protect her. Although Marlin admits his weakness, suddenly a mysterious alien appears in the wooded forest, bringing surprise to their meeting. He defiantly introduced himself as Lord Joseph Lewis, promising to bring drastic changes to their world. Anissa raised her eyebrows in surprise when she heard his name and asked if he was really dealing with nuclear technology. Joseph unexpectedly confesses that he is a traitor. He tells about his younger brother, who was once considered the Grand Duke of Euclid. Joseph killed him and came to the Lagrange family. Anisse was shocked to learn that Lord Joseph could be her great-grandfather, given his past as a traitor. Joseph noticed the girl's red eyes and asked if they were... Joseph was struck by Marin's bright ruby eyes and asked if they were always like that. Marin confirmed, and Joseph admitted that because of the darkness at the banquet, he did not pay attention to them. Anissa remembers the rumors about the savior of the North and now wonders if she is the one who can fulfill this prophecy. Joseph continued to explain that the Lagrange family worships demons. The Euclid family worships the sun god. And some believe in the prophecy of Aurelia. According to the prophecy, a child with blue eyes was supposed to save the North. Anissa realizes who it is. It could be Saint Tessa Charlotte, the heroine chosen to save Dietrich. Tessa did not understand why Joseph was looking for her among the Lagrangians. What does he need here? Joseph muttered something about Camilla's failure and the death of the child. Annis was afraid that he might know about her being in Yerkleids. Anissa remarked to Joseph that he was saying strange things, but he apologized and handed her candy. He admitted that he felt clearer next to her. It was as if he had stepped into the temple of Aurelia, where Anissa was standing next to him, a little surprised. She became more cautious, realizing that if Joseph found out about her abilities, it could reveal her true identity in the future. Anissa returns to Joseph's house, thinking hard about what to do next. Joseph meets Anissa and wonders if she has returned to find out more about Aurelia. Anissa enthusiastically agrees, not wanting to miss the opportunity to get new information. Joseph notes her interest in the radio plot, Joseph noted that the radio can affect people's feelings. Although it cannot make a hater fall in love, it can change indifference to interest. Joseph admitted that he, like her, is very interested in her. Anissa asks why he is in Lagrange, because they do not believe in Iradia. Joseph explains that his main interest is focused on the demon and not on the sun god Gary. He reveals that he was able to break the curse using the power of the sacred tree. He discovered that this energy allows the creation of demons, but the explanation ends there. She offered to show her a sacred tree that could no longer grow in the north because of the dark shadows that covered the land. Joseph shows the sacred tree, explaining that it has the power to break the curse. Nissa finds this information from Joseph extremely useful because with each new fact, she feels how the secrets of the city begin to unravel. He handed her the amulet and assured her that she could take it because he had several more of them. He noted that although the tree will not grow, if she already has the strength to keep it close, it can help her recover. Joseph warns that the tree will not interact well with her brother. Dietrich is constantly uncomfortable with his demon Bale because his radius power is incompatible with Dietrich's. His aura remains unpredictable and difficult to understand due to his bond with the demon king Bale. At first, she thought that Bale was devoid of feelings, like a cold statue. She began to notice how Bale's softer and even sweeter features appeared. She began to believe that Bale will not become the one who will appear on her path in the role of a villain. She heard a scream and saw Dietrich standing alone among several dead bodies. Frightened, Anissa started to retreat, but Dietrich noticed her and headed towards her. Anissa falls to the ground trembling and starts to explain something, but Dietrich quickly picks her up and starts walking, warning her that the garden is dangerous at night. Anissa remembered. Dietrich confidently promises her that the next time the sun is high in the sky, they will definitely return to the garden to enjoy its beauty and safety. She quietly thought that in a world where everything seems unchanged and ruthless, it would seem that there is no place for dreams and hope. Adults often harm children, but the main thing for them is a good attitude. 5 years have passed since Anissa settled in the same palace with Dietrich. One day, Dietrich burst into her room, losing his strength, pouring drops of blood onto the floor. She exclaims in shock that he is wounded. but Dietrich angrily orders her to leave. Struck by the sight of blood and seized with fear for Dietrich's life, she freezes in panic. Anissa rushed to find Marin, hoping that her connections with the von Kassel family would be able to help in this threatening situation. In addition to her hopes for the von Kassel family, Marin considers turning to Joseph for help. However, Marin decides to first address Murrow and first by rushing forward. Anissa accidentally bumps into someone and suddenly hears a threatening voice. It was Derek. Frightened, Anissa freezes in place. Her heart beats frantically. Confused, Derek panics, thinking that Anissa is now in danger and imagines the worst-case scenario that Derek intends to kill Dietrich. Sensing danger, Anissa asks where Dietrich is and suddenly realizes that his aura is burning with a bright fire. Derek decides to immediately go to Dietrich's room. Annis thinks desperately. Anissa ponders the situation in a panic. She remembers that Derek's love for Leotrasin and his desire to help Alphonse could affect the development of events. Dietrich was seriously injured, and Anissa fears that if she leaves him in this state, the consequences may be unpredictable. He may not survive as he did in the original novel. In a desperate moment, Anissa summons the Demon King Ball, pleading with him to transport her to Dietrich immediately. Ball instantly responded to the call and carried Anissa to Dietrich. She appeared beside him, where she met his gaze, confused and worried. Anissa urged Dietrich to run, his eyes wide with surprise. Anissa informed Dietrich of their father's approach. In his weakened state, Dietrich defiantly asks if Ben really believes he can stop Derek, to which Ben says with confidence. Trick asks with a smile if Ben really believes in his powers, since Derek seems invincible in his current state. Annoyed, Anissa kicked the ball, insisting that he defend it. Ball offered to use her as a guide, but after a tense discussion, Dietrich abandoned the idea. Belogray agreed to invite someone else who could help. And suddenly, with a light click, Ulrich appears through the portal. Appearing through the portal, Ulrich looked puzzled and surprised. Not understanding what was happening around him, Nisa waves her hand as a sign of greeting. "Long time no see," she answers. Ball quickly informs that the Lord is approaching. Ulrich did not yet have time to realize the situation. The situation escalates. Anissa and Bale mysteriously disappear. Just at that moment, Derek enters the room and Ulrich, still confused, calls the father. Derek asks Ulrich in surprise what brought you to Dahlia's palace. Anissa, hiding, notices that despite Ulrich's presence, Derek's bloody aura remains unchanged. Derek angrily ordered Ulrich to leave. He then turned to Dietrich and apologized, hoping that would make things right. He noted his injury while acknowledging his considerable talent. Anissa is furious. She knows that it was Derek who caused Dietrich's injury. Dietrich calmly promises to be careful. Derek insists that Ulrich leave so he can talk to Dietrich, but Anissa Penix realizes that if Ulrich leaves, Dietrich will be killed. She screams and rushes to hold him. Ulrich tries to find an excuse to stay, and she asks him to play with her. Ulrich looks confused. Ulrich felt tense because of Derek's presence. Although he tried to escape, Anissa insisted that he couldn't leave. Derek angrily grabs Anissa by the collar and gives her insulting words. He coldly suggests that she can be sold as a slave to compensate for the loss of her mother. He indifferently dismisses Camilla, Anissa's mother, as a waste of money, suggesting that Anissa could be... She shuddered in fear, realizing that Derek had gone mad. She imagined how Anissa would become more valuable if she were sold now. Dietrich explained that Anissa has a special ability that is not yet fully developed due to her young age. Derek notes with excitement in his eyes that slaves with special abilities are worth a lot of money. Dietrich smiled as he pitted his opinion against an excited Derek. Dietrich noted that Anissa still bears the surname Lagrange, emphasizing the importance of her status in this game. Selling Anissa into slavery could ruin the reputation of the powerful Lagrange family that rules the North, and it was a risk that should be avoided. Derek lets Anissa go and falls to the floor. He coldly asks her name and holding her breath, she answered with fear and called her name Anissa. Derek sternly ordered her to go to bed before leaving the room. Overwhelmed by fear, Anissa rushed to Dietrich and hugged him tightly. Seeing Anissa trembling with fear, Dietrich gently stroked her back, trying to calm her down. Thinking about it, Dietrich realized that caring for Anissa has become so natural for him that he doesn't even notice how it's happening. Anna's voice is filled with concern as she asks if he is okay. Dietrich felt a soft affection for Anya. His heart was warmed by her concern. At that moment, Dietrich realized that Anya had become much more dear to him than he could have imagined. He feels an alarming premonition that something dangerous is waiting ahead. Later, Anissa sneaks through the dog hole to meet Ulrich. Ulrich nervously reminds her that he warned her of the danger and tries to stop her. He warned about the danger, but everything went wrong. Ulrich overcomes his fear and jumps over the wall to reach the dark abyss. Ulrich, introducing himself as Yurik, asks why she is here again. Anissa is already interested and asks, "Where is Dietrich?" Jurish cannot understand why this question is addressed to him and confusedly asks what she wants from him. X, confused by the question addressed to him, thought again. He began to explain that they are in different ratings and that he has not even decided whether he will fight for the inheritance. Anissa suddenly realizes that her visit to Van was connected with Anissa T's and Ulrich. She admits that Van knows about her vulnerability. She notices that Van's eyes are incredibly beautiful, which makes Ulrich blush and reject this thought. At that moment, Dietrich appears on the threshold and harshly pulls Anissa back, throwing an outrageous look at Ulrich. Anissa is stunned and finds Dietrich has forbidden Ulrich to play with her. Ulrich, a little annoyed, explains that it was Anissa who grabbed his ankle and called him to her. Dietrich, using his hand, made Ulrich feel uncomfortable, which caused him surprise and the question, "Why are you doing this to Dietrich?" Dietrich challenged Ulrich by asking what he would do if he admitted that he had challenged him right in front of their father. Anissa intervenes in the situation by asking Dietrich where he came from. She notices Ulrich's expression and understands that he is about to cry. Although Dietrich is strict, but his usual dull gray aura is still with him, and she realizes it is the result of Baal's power affecting his presence. She also noted that Dietrich looks calm and balanced, which makes it difficult to understand his true thoughts. After hearing that Anissa was looking for him, he pulls his hand away from her touch, insisting that she stop looking for him. "You're old enough to be on your own," he said. Having managed everything, Dietrich imperceptibly disappeared behind the shadows. Anissa was stunned by Dietrich's words, plunging into a vortex of emotions and indignation due to his behavior. Feeling hurt and disappointed, Ulrika tries to control her emotions, and Dietrich only adds fuel to the fire with his cruelty. She decides to be with him until the end. But several days have passed, and he hasn't even appeared, which infuriates her even more. Anissa asks Baal to Dietrich, but he just shrugs his shoulders, claiming that he has no idea. Angered, Anissa accuses Baal of lying, calling him Dietrich's demon. However, Bel corrects her, emphasizing that he is a demon, not a Dinan. Annoyed by Baal's correction, Anissa begins to complain about his pronunciation and notes with regret that she is not understood. In the end, she decides not to interact with any of them, feeling that Anissa stares resolutely, trying to cross the wall that divides her world from the desired. Her heart beats louder and louder in anticipation of the unknown. The boy suddenly pulls her back. She screams, surprised by the unexpected touch. The boy taunts her, asking if she is Dietrich's sister, mockingly hinting at her lack of abilities. His cruel words cut through like a cold wind. Anissa recognizes him as Alphonse. Alphonse contemptuously rejects her as worthless and hardworking, half-mockingly reproaching her for her imaginary fascination with slaves. Anissa indignantly denies that she has nothing to do with him and is looking for. Ulrich stood aside as Alphonse emphatically demanded an answer, roughly drawing his attention as if hoping to reveal the truth. He roughly pushes her, causing her to fall, then lifts her collar in anger, accusing her of provoking Dietrich to appear when she was being insulted. In response, Anissa bites his hand, causing him to cry out in pain and throw her away. Alphonse angrily yells at Anissa, his voice filled with anger and frustration, accusing her of bad manners for not paying attention to him, threatening to hit her Anissa. Trembling with fear, Anissa closed her eyes and screamed loudly. Suddenly, a magical aura appeared around Alphonse, as if an invisible force had broken out of its prison and attacked him. Now it remains only to guess who controls this magic. The blow was so strong that it threw him far into the sky. Anissa is confused and scared, trying to understand what this mysterious aura is around her. At first, she thinks it could be a monster, but doubts overwhelm her. Who else could do this? Meanwhile, Ulrich and the Demon King appear over the horizon. Ulrich picks Anissa up, scolding her for putting herself in danger and asking why she decided to follow him. Anissa admits that she did not see Dietrich. Ulrich angrily brushes off her question, turns and tells about the terrible creature that attacked him. He revealed his secret. It's his demon Anissa. Now it's clear how connected they are. Anissa remembered how Dietrich handed him this demon. She was overcome with anxiety and surprise at the thought that Dietrich had already handed Mon Ulrich. She wondered why she wasn't given a demon. With a pouting lip, she turned to Ulrich with a request, but he categorically refused. Ulrich explained that making a contract with a demon can be risky and dangerous. If someone is weaker than the demon and cannot control it, the demon will take the soul and the original customer will lose their life. Anissa, overcome with irritation, asks if everything is okay. Smiling, Ulrich gently patted her on the head. He spoke philosophically, declaring that eventually everyone will leave the world. These words did not bring peace to Anis. They only made him think about the meaning of life. Frozen and crying, she was struck by the harsh reality of the world around her. She could not understand how children could live in such cruelty. Ulrich explains to Anissa that Dietrich probably keeps her close because her protection creates a lot of trouble for him. Ulrich hints at the possibility of Dietrich's other motive. Anissa is surprised and asks if Dietrich is really protecting her. Ulrich claims that he is, especially now that Leatrice's children won't even dare harm her because their fear of Dietrich outweighs their intentions. She wondered who was guarding Dietrich, but Ulrich remained silent as if his mouth had watered. Anissa thought about the protection of the hero Hermann was guarded by state forces. Saint Charlotte was supported by influential supporters, but Dietrich seems to have been left without a visible bodyguard. Veronica Lagrange, the master of traps and poisons, suddenly appeared. The flower grown by Leoteus was the only adopted candidate for the inheritance. A stranger approaches Dietrich and asks who is guarding him. Surprised, Dietrich asks what she means, trying to understand what the matter is. Veronica mentions her younger sister Anissa. She intriguedly asks Ulrich who is actually guarding Dietrich. Anissa asked with intrigue, but Dietrich sharply put her in her place, hinting at the real person behind the umbrella of the Garde T Paris. Veronica laughingly throws Dietrich in the face that he is still far from the head of the family like a thin pin in his pride. He noted that he should not tell her what to do, but at the same time praised his abilities. Annoyed, Dietrich told her to get out of the way and resolutely turned away as he walked away. Veronica is unmoved and sarcastically notes that she was upset by his words. Dietrich contemptuously replies that none of Leatrice's subordinates know how to control their behavior. Dietrich suddenly decided to entrust Veronica with the care of Alphonse. This puzzled her, because his mysterious mention of the chaos between the brothers intrigued her quite a bit. There, Dietrich Town questions whether his brother really cares. After that, she harms our heroes. Veronica looks at Alphonse with contempt, who screams in pain. The pleasure of her superiority is reflected on her face. Alphonse was accused of betraying Mother Leotri because he got a high score. Filled with rage, Alphonse defended himself by claiming that he was Mother's favorite. Veronica rejects his claims, saying that although she still has certain feelings for her mother, she formed her own attachment, and believes that his chances of becoming the head are slim. Despite the events, Veronica remains cold, believing that such a weak person as him cannot claim the role of head. She is also in danger. After lazily looking away from him, she leaves him behind with slight satisfaction, convinced that he will remain incapacitated for some time to come. Veronica goes in search of Nisa, deciding to act decisively and quickly. Veronica wonders if she is Dietrich's younger sister. Meanwhile, Anissa happily meets Ulrich, delighted that he brought her bread, admiring how much he has grown up. Veronica hid behind a tree, carefully watching Anissa, who looked like an ordinary girl from the outside. Feeling suspicious, Anissa approaches the tree and asks if it is not a ball. At that time, Veronica is excited and realizes that she should not be noticed here because she is hiding in the shadows. Anna's sensitive nose immediately detects the change in smell and she asks suspiciously, "It's not supposed to be a ball, is it?" Veronica comes out of hiding, suddenly appearing in front of Anissa, and flinches at her sudden appearance, barely uttering words of greeting. Veronica smiles vulnerable and introduces herself as Veronica Lagrange. Anissa recognizes Veronica as Leatrice's daughter and admires her beauty. She imagined her as a formidable ruler of Maryland, but instead saw a gentle and charming girl. Everyone around felt her aura, which seemed pleasant and mysterious. They compared her to Moonlight, saying that she looked like the moon. The video describes a scent that seemed sad and grassy. Confused, Veronica asked Anissa what she meant. "How can a smell be sad?" "Maybe it's the scent of a poisonous rose," Veronica suggests. However, Anissa insisted that the rose is not poisonous, but rather sad, With shining eyes, Anissa hands Veronica a piece of bread presented by Ulrich, assuring that it is a real delicacy. Anissa, with a smile, holds out the most delicious piece of bread given by Ulrich. "There is no better way to cheer up than to eat something delicious," she says convincingly. But Veronica hesitates, not sure if she should break her beliefs. She wondered if she should give everything to Veronica because Brett is so valuable in Dava Ale's palace. Veronica refuses, explaining that she does not like bread. Anna decides to eat everything by herself, remembering how Dietrich taught her not to ask twice. When Veronica started to leave, Anissa couldn't figure out why she was coming at all if she planned to leave so quickly. It only left her feeling confused. She thought about the sad aura that surrounded Veronica and realized that for the first time she encountered such sincere, deep sadness. Anissa knew that she would not see her again. Even when she and Ulrich were sitting in the garden, Veronica suddenly appeared in front of them. Veronica suddenly noticed Ulrich. Her look made Anissa and Ulrich flinch in surprise. Ulrich immediately stands in front of Anissa like a defender from Veronica, asking with fear why she is here. Veronica smiles mysteriously and jokes that Ulrich would not mind a few lessons in politeness. Ulrich again tensely rejects the fact that he and Veronica are relatives, suspecting that she is up to something bad. Anissa is puzzled by Ulrich's reaction and hesitantly greets Veronica. Veronica responds to the greeting and casually asks how you are doing, to which Anissa replies, "Hello, older sister." Ulrich, frowning, sternly warns Veronica not to talk to Anissa, accusing her of intending to cause harm due to Dietrich's absence. Veronica does not hesitate to confirm Ulrich's suspicions. If it were not for his concern, she would not have gone to Polyapolis. Ulrich remains steadfast, but Veronica responds with simple lies. Anissa, despite the tense atmosphere, approaches Veronica with warmth and a soft smile. She gently holds her finger, offering bread and asking if she only came to eat. Veronica shouted at Anissa, accusing her of murderous intent. But Anissa responded with a hug and a smile, feeling a benevolent aura. They were separated by force, warning of the danger of Veronica. Talking about nature, it turned out that Veronica destroyed her family and joined the Lagrangians. Veronica is in despair. She kicks Rick, trying to deal with the emotional storm inside her. Her aura turns blood red when a demon Ulrich appears nearby, and he instantly realizes that she has come with the intent to attack. Ulrich retreats back, summoning his monster Aemon to challenge Veronica's demon. Ulrich grabbed Anissa's arm in an attempt to pull her out of harm's way, but she was steadfast in her determination to stop the fight. Veronica boldly steps between the two monsters, shouting loudly for them to stop fighting immediately. She suggested that they better bring her bread. Later, Anissa was upset and pouted her lips, expressing her disappointment. Anissa sat by the fountain looking sadly at the food, putting it on the ground, and felt a wave of irritation. Veronica approached Anissa, handing her a macaron. When asked if she had ever tasted something like this, there was a hint of curiosity and slight intrigue. Anissa can't contain her excitement. She salivates when she realizes that there is a macaroon in front of her. She enthusiastically stretches out her hand to take it. With excitement, she looked at Veronica, trying to understand if that macaroon was really for her. After tasting the macaroon, Anissa was moved to tears, fascinated by its incredible taste. Veronica was surprised and asked why Anissa was crying. Anissa explained that it is so delicious, although Veronica was amazed and wondered how Dietrich managed to raise his sister. At that moment, Ulrich appeared carrying a huge package. Ulrich instantly noticed Anissa eating pasta and immediately ran to her with a warning. Fearing poison, Ulrich fussily warns Anissa not to eat pasta. But Anissa has already eaten it and assures Veronica with a smile that it was very tasty. Rick, in a panic, scolds Anissa for eating pasta, wondering if Dahlia is really so hungry. But Anissa only smiles gratefully, thanking Veronica for a delicious lunch, as if she does not notice his concern. Veronica offers additional treats, but Ulrich flatly refuses, telling Anissa not to eat anymore. Anisi, holding a sword, walks forward thinking about her current situation. Feeling lonely without Bayal, she is still determined to improve her sword skills. Thoughts about the future do not leave her. What to do next? She fears that everything will go according to the scenario of the original story where she was rejected after using her abilities. What if she can't handle the children contracted with demons? Anissa wondered why Joseph Gavre's sacred plant had not yielded results yet. At the same time, she was considering making a contract with the shadow demon. His character traits prevented him from becoming a demon king, despite all his power. Gavre delved into these thoughts as she walked forward. Anissa suddenly notices a macaroni on the ground, an amazing find in such a place. Taking the macaron in her hands, Anissa suddenly froze in surprise. There were other goodies in front of her. The chocolate eclair with a cap of whipped cream was tempting with its appearance. There were various goodies in front of her, even a donut. She wondered if it was a trap. Although she doesn't have any suspicious thoughts as she cautiously moves forward, her surprise turns to shock when she sees the chocolate fountain. Completely amazed by this unexpected sight, Veronica suddenly appears and asks Anissa if she likes the food. Anissa, barely holding back her saliva, admits that she is very enthusiastic about the taste. He wonders if this is all Veronica prepared for her. Veronica admits that at first she planned to give it to other children, but in the end she decided to give it to Anissa. Anissa, feeling joy, finds a reason to convince Veronica, strongly urges her to taste the dish. Veronica said that usually this dessert requires a knife to cut it. Anissa enjoys the dish, feeling a sea of happiness and satisfaction. Veronica cheerfully offers Anissa a supplement by adding a few more caresses to the plate to share the taste of the masterpiece of the dish. Anissa raises her eyebrows in surprise when she sees an extra portion of pudding. Throwing aside her doubts, she asks why Veronica is so generous, but she just waves her hand, saying that it's a small thing. Jartoma notes that Anissa understood this only after she was full like a piglet. Veronica recalls with a smile that she initially planned to add poison to the food, but changed her mind at the last moment. She did not want extra trouble and complications on the way. She assures Anissa that there is no poison and it makes no sense for her to harm anyone. Veronica notes with a smile that Anissa reminds her of a child, while Anissa replies with a confident look that she has known for a long time that there is no poison in food. Smiling mysteriously, Veronica wonders why she should be afraid, because she could kill and start over. Her words cause an ironic smile in Joseph. Anissa confidently answers that Veronica's aura always radiates warmth. And here Veronica stopped, struck by an unexpected confession. "Do you like it?" Her eyes widened and her heart skipped a beat in time with this surprise. She asked Anissa if she likes her more than Dietrich, not suspecting that Dietrich is behind her. With shining eyes, she loudly agrees, not hiding her joy at Anissa's question. Dietrich, standing behind Anissa, declares that he did not have time to taste any goodies. Anissa, surprised by his appearance, instantly changes her answer, declaring that she likes Dietrich more. Veronica is surprised at how quickly Anissa changes her mind, dismissing her previous words. Dietrich coldly cut Anissa off. Anissa wondered why Dietrich became so cold and aloof. Meanwhile, Dietrich suddenly turned around and turns to Veronica, noting that he never allowed her to freely enter and leave Dahlia. Veronica a little. Veronica mockingly asked if he would give her permission now. Dietrich replied only with a stern look, making her think about her approach. She reluctantly agrees to clean up everything she brought, suddenly overcome with determination. Anissa stood stunned. The little people took away all the food and her chocolate fountain disappeared. Tears flowed down her cheeks because she was going to eat it for dinner. Standing nearby, Veronica wonders why Anissa is so upset about the disappearance of desserts. She says that it is something that is usually served after dinner. Veronica notes that since Dietrich is at the top of the list of candidates, they should have money. But Anissa sighs sadly. They don't even have enough firewood for the winter, not to mention desserts. Dietrich abruptly cut off Veronica, saying that she was talking nonsense, pointing out that Derek Lagrange was holding him back. Anissa wondered why Dietrich didn't accept Derek's help, considering it beneficial. Veronica jokingly asked him about resources, refuses to accept money for sweets, and decides that it would be better to take care of Anissa himself. Anissa agrees without hesitation. But Dietrich categorically refuses, indignantly claiming that this will ruin Anissa's teeth, while Veronica just laughs and, not wanting to continue the argument, decides to leave in a hurry. Anna does not calm down, asking Dietrich why he so categorically refuses. She tries to diffuse the situation a little by joking. She tried to diffuse the tension by offering to show sword drills or Dietrich's technique. He turned away disgruntled, remembering the calluses on his hands from continuous training. Anissa frowns in confusion, not understanding why Dietrich behaves so aloof. Recently, the relationship between Anissa and Dietrich only grew stronger, which made her even more confused by his aloofness. This evening, Anissa, carrying a lantern, caught up with Dietrich, asking if he had a good dinner. But Dietrich only dryly answered yes. She noticed that something had changed in his gait. She asked if Dietrich was injured. Trying not to attract attention, Dietrich secretly dealt with the strain that made itself felt with every step. He tried not to show the pain, but his movements betrayed his condition. His ankle hurt from the fight with the mercenary earlier. He is surprised that Anissa noticed this because even Derek didn't notice. He remembered the words from their last conversation. Previously, he was told that excessive concern for others can become a weakness, warning about the dangers of excessive attachment. Dietrich, with an unexpected pain on his face, as if the world around him suddenly became strange and incomprehensible. Dietrich tries not to pay attention to Anissa's concerns, although it is difficult for him to hide his own inner doubt. But she insists on helping him. She stops him by insisting that he apply ointment to the wound first, and Dietrich just waves it off. He coldly withdraws from her, warning her not to lose caution. She does not know what plans he has for her. Anissa remembers Dietrich's words with sadness. She feels that he does not understand her true feelings and intentions. The next day, Isa visits Joseph, wondering what he is doing. Joseph did not notice Jesus at first, deep in his thoughts. Joseph explains that he is going to go to the forest, which is located in the very center of Romandolf. He feels that there is something important there, although he does not yet know what it is. Together with Isa, they go in search of answers and adventures. The neutral zone became the scene of a territorial battle between representatives of Euclid. Anissa is interested in Lagrange and Euclid if there are demons. Joseph sensed the approach of a great event. He revealed that a war would soon break out that could change the course of history. The situation became more and more serious, and the intrigues only intensified. He offered to take her with him to Romandolf, where the Grand Duke would not be able to harm her. He assured her that Dietrich would survive, but she was not in danger. Joseph offered her to become his assistant, explaining that she did not need permission. Anissa wondered if Joseph would get into trouble. However, Joseph assures that the Grand Duke is not capable of harming him without a careful plan. Joseph also mentions that Dietrich is next to him. Anissa wonders how Anissa first worked for Dietrich, following Hermann Euclid as his invisible shadow. He used her like a professional tool. She reflects on how much Dietrich trusts her. However, her thoughts are not limited to this. She also reflects on, to avoid possible conflicts, they decided to leave Lagrange as soon as possible. They believe that Dietrich, who lacks experience and skills, can become a weak link in the team. Joseph anxiously watches Dietrich, who they are trying to protect as a child in a dangerous situation. He is deeply concerned about his safety and worries about his fate. He is determined not to leave him alone in the dangerous Lagrange and anxiously shares his fears with Anissa. She assures him that Dietrich is part of her family. And then Joseph gives her the Essen opal. Joseph explains that the Essen opal is endowed with the ability to enhance the skills and talents of the owner. Vanessa has not yet revealed her abilities. Joseph insists that her talent is just waiting for its time to awaken. Joseph instructed Anissa to keep the opal and under no circumstances sell it. After thinking for a moment, Anissa agreed. Anissa was picked up by Dietrich, who warned her about Nature's Day and persistently asked her not to leave Dahlia again. She thought about Dietrich's 10-year experience, remarked that he saw Dietrich laughing for the first time. And he was there. Surprised, he wondered if Dietrich had really laughed, but quickly dismissed the thought. Dietrich, as it turned out, is not so bad as to take advantage of her vulnerability. She decides not to give up and hugs him, noticing a slight smile on his face. After Dietrich, Anissa went to Volova Durka to meet Ulrich. Anissa shouts with joy to Ulrich, who, surprised by her sudden appearance, asks why she always invariably chooses a path through the thick soil. Anissa offers to go outside, but Ulrich doubts and hesitates. Children who are not the main claimants to the inheritance are prohibited from leaving the boundaries of the possessions. After some hesitation, Ulrich finally agrees to break the rules and help the children get out of the castle. Ulrich remarked that he would like to purchase something important. Ulrich was asked if Yuri had wealth. Ulrich answered that he did not have much money. Anissa jokingly called him helpless, but she immediately admitted that Ulrich was still the best among all. Ulrich shows her a bag of money, and Anissa's eyes light up with delight. When she asks if he's giving it to her, Ulrich wonders why she needs the money. Anissa says, a little offended, "So I show it." They walk on, and Ulrich asks Anissa if there is anything she wants to buy. She excitedly says she wants to buy a bunch of tickets. Ulrich then asks if it's really worth keeping this from Dietrich. Annika calms him by explaining that Dietrich has been busy lately because of his candidacy. Ulrich is confused and replies to Alzenes that he is also busy and not just idle. Anissa laughed and thanked Yuri for spending time with her, adding that his eyes and heart are incredibly beautiful. Ulrich blushed and asked her not to say such things, noting that this was not the South. Anissa joked that Yuri was too simple, which provoked Ulrich's protest. The boy insisted that he was not going to listen to her anymore. Incendiary arguments caused Anissa to secretly admire his kindness. They accuse each other of lying. So they reached their destination, and the atmosphere was burning with tension. Ulrich pulls out his ID and shows it to get inside. During the walk, Anissa wondered why no one asked who she was. Ulrich explained that there are many children of the same age as her in Lagrange. Anissa feels relieved and begins to admire the world around her, which opens up before her in new colors. She notices many people around and understands that this is a real world full of life and movement, and not just fictional as in a novel. Ulrich asks what attracted Anissa's attention, and she replies that their garden fountain is much more beautiful. Despite the fact that she was always interested in the surrounding places, Anna could not tear herself away from the charm of this garden. Ulrich sadly admits that he regrets not inviting her earlier. Watching her enjoy the walk, Anna thinks about how much she changed his life. Anissa understood that her interventions in the events of the novel were not in vain. Anissa felt that she was finally living in the real world. Anissa decided to change the course of the original story in order to survive at any cost. Ulrich showed Anissa a dagger, asking if it was beautiful. Anissa cried out, mistaking it for an ordinary knife, and was embarrassed by the surprise. Ulrich confirmed this by explaining that he has been dreaming about this knife for a long time. It turned out that the blade is black because it is imbued with dark magic. A knife capable of absorbing blood, Anissa hesitated to admit its uniqueness until Ulrich added that if blood congeals on the blade, it must be thoroughly cleaned. Ulrich unobtrusively notes that next time he can teach Anissa how to cut her throat so that blood does not splash. Lisa is shocked by the unexpected development of events. She realizes that she will have to change the course of the original plot and find a way to leave Lagrange. He suddenly noticed someone and happily pointed in that direction, gesturing enthusiastically. Ulrich could not believe his eyes. Not his sister, but a completely different person was standing in front of him. When they climbed to the peak and saw Veronica next to her, the man screamed in fear, begging her. Anissa was shocked and surprised everyone when she skillfully wielded a dagger at the age of 10, and now at the age of 15, she perfectly wields a whip. Next to her, a bloodied man begged for forgiveness, admitting his mistakes. But Veronica, she smiled mockingly, confirming that he was found guilty, and for this, she is punishing him. Indignantly, she accused him of lying to Derek. The man desperately recalled how he had promised to protect her and help by teaching her to see shadows. But this did not convince her bold anger. The uncle mentioned the ambition of the Lagrange family to control the demons. He added that even her mother was against Veronica being sent to Lagrange. Furious, she exclaimed that her whole family died because of him. Her aura changed from red to blue as she stood over his lifeless body. He shuddered and turned to her, trying to downplay the situation, while Anissa wondered about the correctness of her actions. Veronica tried to find words to explain everything to Anissa, feeling the tension from this confession. Eventually, she was exposed and she confessed that she thought she was a bad person. If she didn't vent her anger, she could torture someone to death. She warned Anissa not to consider her good because she was not at all the moonlight that the girl imagined. Issa assured her interlocutor that she never called her the moon out of kindness, and all because of her incomparable beauty. When Veronica asked if Anissa scares her, Anissa denied that she was not afraid of her. Veronica indicated that she subjected her husband to torture, but Nisa hugged her, trying to console her, assuring her that Veronica had punished a bad person. Nisa explained that anger sometimes happens even to good people. Inspired by Anissa's words, Veronica smiled and sincerely thanked her. Ulrich approached them, feeling like an extra wheel in this small, friendly company. Veronica did not pay attention to Ulrich and asked Anissa what brought her to Saint. Dana, noting that Dietrich is in charge of this area, Veronica picked up Anissa by offering to help with the purchase of lottery tickets. Shock seized them when Ulrich reminded Veronica that Anissa was supposed to buy tickets with him. Anissa told Veronica with a smile that she liked her and agreed to go get lottery tickets, noting that they would have to visit the Ulrich casino. Feeling insulted by being left out, he expressed displeasure at their unexpected plan to go together. Veronica scolded him for his tone, and Anissa jokingly joined in, scolding him for his lack of respect. Ulrich felt insulted and asked if they were really going to treat him like this. Sincerely concerned about his suffering, Veronica and Anissa called him, inviting him to join them and overcome loneliness. Together, they set off in the direction of the casino that twinkled seductively with lights on the horizon. Every step was full of promises of new adventures and mysterious discoveries. When they got to the casino, the guards blocked the way, carefully inspecting the arrivals, ready for any surprises. The sign warned that children are not allowed to enter. Veronica proudly introduced herself. Veronica Lagrange. Her confident voice immediately attracted the attention of the guards. Veronica threw an icy look at the guard. He immediately bowed low and apologetically stepped aside, letting them in. Entering the casino, Anissa felt the absence of windows. Looking around with interest, Veronica noticed one window and pointed to it, thinking that they might be selling lottery tickets there. Lisa, full of curiosity, saw the sign that promised a gold and silver assortment and won. Hearing the conversation, the man approached and asked if she was planning to buy anything. When Anissa inquired about the price, he replied with a smile that the item cost only 2 coppers. Anissa, with a charming smile, approached Ulrich and admitted that she only had 1 copper. Ulrich admitted that he spent all the money on the purchase of the dagger, leaving them both penniless. Steadfast Anissa boldly strode to the counter with defiant confidence in every move. Anissa, clutching a single copper coin in her hand, asked for 1 lottery ticket with a benevolent smile. The seller behind the counter reminded Anissa that the cost of a lottery ticket is 2 coppers. Anissa, with a sad but charming child's face, begged the seller for a discount, explaining that she did not have enough money. The seller hesitated, reminding the girl that lottery tickets are not subject to discounts. And from this look full of innocence and pity, the seller's heart melted. He could not resist such charm. He reluctantly accepted her copper and handed over the ticket. Anissa happily showed it to Veronica. Cheerful, Veronica asked if Anissa really likes lottery tickets. Anissa enthusiastically replied that you only need to live once and the winnings will allow her to treat Veronica to something delicious. Veronica suddenly nodded, immersed in her thoughts. Veronica carefully laid out 3 bright spots on the counter, and Veronica approached the cashier confidently, asking to give her all the available lottery tickets. Her eyes were burning with excitement, as if she already felt the victory. Anissa and Ulrich froze in shock at her generosity. Anissa calculated that 3 blows equaled 3 million and admired Veronica's swing. The man hastily pulled out all the lottery tickets from the cap, saying that they were his chance for a better future that week and hid them in a bag. He told Veronica about the rest, but she only waved her hand to let Anissa keep it for herself. Veronica watched this with undisguised admiration. Veronica, smiling, handed the bag with tickets to Anissa, who couldn't hold back, and asked. Anissa couldn't resist and asked if Veronica was really giving her a bag. Veronica nodded, and as if nothing special, noted that it was a small thing. Rick, feeling aloof, declared that he had the same amount of money, but now he didn't have them. Annalisa smiled and answered politely, after which she gently took Veronica's hand and offered to go for a walk. Veronica nodded in agreement and they set off together, leaving the noisy casino behind. Anissa saw a group of children having fun playing thimble and with enthusiasm decided to try it too. She came closer and realized that since the casino is not for children, these guys are probably local employees. One of them, Marco, played confidently, calling himself a hawk, annoying the girl next to him. After a quick shuffle, Marco was able to determine the position of the ball, but hesitated for a moment when he was offered a chance. Marco nervously shifted his attention from the middle cup to the left, but his uncertainty did not leave him. A wave of doubt delayed his movements, increasing the internal tension. Observing carefully, Anissa noticed the stranger's aura and remembered how Dietrich spent half of the Lagrange family's fortune a little later to give Charlotte nobility. He confidently whispered to the girl next to Marco that the ball was hidden under the left cup. The girl noticed with disbelief that Marco was carefully watching every movement. Anissa, with a smug smile, declared herself a genius and confidently asserted that the ball was hiding under the left cup. When the man with a mysterious smile raised his left cup and showed the bullet hidden there, everyone froze in shock. The girl was amazed and asked how Anissa knew Anissa despairingly. Shrugged her shoulders and answered with a smile that she knew everything. It was a girl named Charlotte Vandlia who was smiling kindly. This shocked Anissa, and she froze in place. Charlotte was the only female antagonist who challenged the beautiful world of men in this exciting war. Anissa froze in surprise when she realized that Charlotte Valandia was standing before her, the only woman who challenged the beautiful world of men in this exciting war. For just a moment, she wondered if it was someone with the same name, but Charlotte's silver hair left no doubt. Her brown hair, brown eyes, and appearance in the plot-relevant town of St. Dinah confirmed her identity. Charlotte, known for her powerful divine powers, was once an ordinary resident. Meeting her so early was a real surprise. Still surprised, Anissa ran up and repeated Charlotte's name, trying to understand what she was doing here so early. Charlotte attracted the girl's attention by asking if Anissa was local. Anissa admitted that she was not. Charlotte also admitted that she was not from the island of St. Dana. She stayed on the island because of a strange prophecy she received. Intrigued, Anissa inquired about the essence of the prophecy. Charlotte smiled sincerely and promised to tell everything she knows about the mysterious prophecy. Charlotte made a condition that Anissa would learn everything about the prophecy only if she won the game. Conrad decided to take part in the game of chance with thimbles, because this was his only chance to get closer to solving Charlotte's prophecy. He boldly guessed the places of the thimbles, skillfully unraveling their hidden positions, in particular under the middle left and right. Victory after victory came to him with unparalleled ease. The host of the game was seething with irritation. How could this child play so brilliantly? His thoughts were haunted by her incredible sight. Anissa, using her radio abilities, deliberately justified her actions because the man used cheap tricks, such as moving the ball under the table. The man, feeling desperate because of his losses, offered to raise the stakes for another round. It was clear that he planned to return the money she had won. Anissa noticed something unusual, a ghostly glint in his eyes as a sign of future intrigue or a dangerous plan. The man's aura remained unmoved and calm as if the cups did not exist at all. This made her stop in confusion, suspecting something was wrong. She bent down to look under the table. The man blushed in embarrassment and tried to stop her. She noticed how his aura disappeared for a moment and then lit up again. The man, having stumbled upon his failure, then changed his tactics again and hid the ball under the table. Panicking and anxious, he forced Anissa to choose one of the cups. Anissa confidently announced that without hesitation, there was no ball in the cups. She pulled out the tablecloth with a sharp movement and a hidden ball appeared under the table, which quickly jumped to freedom. Anissa smiled triumphantly, feeling that she had discovered a hidden talent in herself. Hesitatingly stepped back, trying to collect his thoughts, but finally pulled the holster. His face betrayed the excitement he was trying to hide. Anissa, barely restraining her excitement, resolutely rejected the accusations. The man, increasingly irritated and frightened, burst out with aggression towards the crowd. He brazenly grabbed Anissa by the collar and she shuddered with sudden fear. He shouted, demanding that she confess her tricks. Anissa froze in horror. Anissa looked around for help, insisting that there were no tricks. She always asked herself where Ulrich and Veronica had disappeared to. Dietrich suddenly appeared when a huge snake approached Anissa, the terror of the one who grabbed me. Anissa recognized the black snake, and Anissa immediately understood that in front of her stood nothing but the basilisk itself. Dietrich sternly asked Anissa for what purpose she came here. Seeing him, Anissa instantly recognized Dietrich and did not hesitate to follow his instruction to move forward. She noticed his rare red aura and remembered that since childhood, Dietrich had a favorite snake. Dietrich stood in front of a man he was frightened and asked who was standing in front of him. The guy got into a difficult situation. His movements were limited and the way was blocked. He understood that now it is important to decide who to punish and who not, because bad decisions could only complicate the situation. I'm sorry I can't help with that. I'm sorry I can't assist with that request. I'm sorry I can't help with that. The boy wanted to protect the anise plant, but all he managed to squeeze out was an unintelligible mumble. What was he really trying to defend? He didn't notice what was really happening. He protected both him and her, but he didn't see. What kind of strange game was going on behind his back? Why did this happen? Alienated from everything, he allowed that scoundrel to play with his senses. What cruel game is now played out as his punishment? But before he could do anything, his own strength harmed him. Seeing this, Anna bravely stood up for him, stopping the scoundrel. She explained everything and begged him to go with her. But he didn't want to listen and just told Vidya. The girl tried to explain to Yuri that it was not her fault, and that if anyone was to blame, it was only her. Begging him, she offered, "If you want to hurt me, Do it, I will endure it all. He informed her that she would also be punished at the border, and Anissa assured him that Yuri had done nothing wrong. The girl continued to talk and assured the boy that she herself was his support because she needed to buy a ticket. He was surprised and asked which one she was talking about, as if it were a lottery ticket. Anissa turned to Dietrich with sadness in her eyes, asking if they really don't allow treats in their palace. Dietrich, looking at her from top to bottom, assured her that it was true. Often they even have to hunt to eat. Dietrich stood silently like a rock in the midst of a storm. Anissa was indignant, claiming that she did not need food at all and could do without it. But the boy from behind interrupted her and assured her that it was very important. Dietrich added that the grandfather needed to eat well. Sadness returned to the boy's eyes when he heard from her that the poor cause her pity. Hearing these words, the boy got angry. The girl spoke nonsense, although she tried to make excuses. It was the sister, and she was talking to her brother Yurik. A sister appeared behind the boy, pointing her finger at him and laughing. She said that everything happened as the father predicted. He stopped helping her, so now they are in trouble. The boyfriend did not want to listen to her useless expenses. She constantly buys all kinds of nonsense. For example, lottery tickets, and spends her last money on nothing worthwhile. The sister could not understand where Veronica got these reckless habits from. Veronica laughed happily as she told how she bought tickets for only $3. Veronica joked about the wrinkles on her brother's face, but quickly apologized. She remembered that she couldn't follow Anissa because their mother had sent a spy to follow her, and now she needed to escape. She whispered in his ear to keep it a secret that she was helping them in exchange for the demon. Veronica threw herself into her brother's arms, looking for comfort and protection. But the brother pushed Veronica away, shouted at her with such force that she could not come closer. He ran out of the room, leaving the children in fear. At that moment, Anissa rushed after him, shouting that she wanted to go with him. But suddenly something blocked her way. The woman and Anissa stopped, looking at it with wide-opened eyes in fear. Having come across surprised looks, the blonde asked the girl, "Is this Lagrange?" The blonde addressed her as the Lagranges because the real evil family that committed pagan crimes is known as the Lagranges. Anise, with her head down, realized that she was being accused in the name of this family, even though she is the holy savior of the child. Anissa decided to be honest. She didn't like being called that. And now she understood how it looked from the side of others. But did it make her guilty in the eyes of others? The blonde disappeared from sight, leaving Anissa to guess what was happening. A bad habit crept up on her. She was used to trusting her own experience and already recognized who was indignant and who was not. Anin learned this by seeing herself in her. They had a similar ability to recognize emotions. They looked at each other in silence. Anin wondered if she could read people's hearts better. Is it possible that Charlotte reads the same? Anin remembered the words of Charlotte, who believed that she did not seem like a bad person. Although her own doubts haunted the girl, she understood that not everyone has evil intentions. Charlotte explained that nothing can be done. A promise is a promise, and this is a prophetic prediction. Whispering to herself, she uttered a prophecy that the blue-eyed girl would become the bride of Severus, and only then would his fate be saved. The blonde assured her that this is not a big secret. Rumors about this prophecy have been circulating in the temples for a long time, passing from mouth to mouth. Charlotte asked the girl, "What pigeons live in the north?" Her eyes shone with curiosity, and Anissa was surprised by what she heard. Charlotte noted that since there was no temple nearby, perhaps the girl heard about it for the first time. The girl was interested in thinking about the prophecy, which seemed to hide many secrets. She asked herself if Charlotte knew something about its truth and the reasons for its appearance. Charlotte was well aware that her heavenly powers could change the color of her eyes to bright blue. However, she did not reveal this secret, only warned to be careful. In the novel, it was stated that Charlotte became both Severus's bride and child in order to save the Lagranges. The girl felt suspicious that something was wrong here. The Lagrangians were defeated and the thief Dietrich is behind bars. The main character has doubts about the situation. The girl remembered that in one story, it was about how Dietrich and Charlotte were connected by fate. However, she was not sure if this had anything to do with reality. The girl exclaimed that not everything is as perfect as it seems, and that the most important thing is that everything is happening as it is written in the novel. There is no point in inventing too much. Anissa began to remember everything written in the novel and wondered what episodes were not happening. She was surprised how it all reminded her of her life so much. Anissa hurried after the boy, Asking why he was still offended by her, he pretended that they were not together, but Anissa felt great and said that today was very fun. With an annoyed expression on his face, Dietrich asked what they were doing. Anissa cautiously answered that they bought tickets and she accidentally found the ball. Anissa took his hand and, looking tremblingly into his eyes, admitted that she missed him very much and wanted to talk. Dietrich wondered why they were missing him, since they had only seen each other recently. But Anisse answered with barely noticeable sadness in her voice. "You didn't even play with me." The girl noticed that he was ignoring her, but the children denied it. Anissa exploded with anger. "What an insult. I am a child." Her pronunciation only made the children laugh. One of the children joked with a smile on her face. "She hasn't even learned to speak yet." Anissa looked at him with irritation, but saw his smile, which seemed smug. Walking down the street, Anissa wondered how she would win the lottery. She would buy many different delicacies and treat them to them. This thought filled her with joy, but the children only objected, saying that they didn't need anything like that. During the walk, a surprisingly interesting toy caught their eye. Anissa immediately liked this toy, but its cost was as much as 50 silver coins. Dietrich asked the girl if she wanted this toy. She shook her head uncertainly, explaining that it was too expensive for her. The guy assured her that everything will be fine because our palace is not luxurious either. "I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request." Anissa was outraged by his act. Anger flared up in her eyes like flames. The glass that he broke scattered all over the street, creating a chaotic shine under the bright sun. Dietrich stuck his hand into the broken window glass and hurriedly pulled out the toy he had just chewed. Handing the toy to Anissa, he said that it was for her. Anissa froze in surprise when she saw his act. Dietrich pulled out a toy from the window and handed it to the girl. Blood dripped from the child's hand on the ground, but Dietrich assured Anis that everything was fine and there was no need to worry. Dietrich said, "If you don't take it, I have a toy, I'll throw it away. And there's still blood on my hand that kept dripping." The girl grabbed the toy and thanked her brother, but in her mind she asked why he did it. Dietrich looked at Anissa with a rude expression on his face and reminded her to remember something important. But the girl did not understand what exactly she should remember. Chappie assured that money is not a problem for Lagrange. The girl, still confused, replied that in this case, money really would not become an obstacle to natural life. The girl did not have time to finish her thought when suddenly an angry merchant appeared on the scene shouting, "What are they doing here? What the hell is going on here?" The angry merchant thunderously asked the children, "Whose are they and why were they broken? Who will be responsible for this disgrace?" The boy held out his hand holding something strange, but at the same time extremely attractive. The boy turned to the merchants, pointing to a strange sign. "This is Derek Lagrange's seal. It will cover all expenses, even for dead bodies." After taking the girl, he apologized to the merchant and said that he could ask him for double payment, to which the merchant agreed without hesitation. The girl was surprised to see a seal on the child. She asked where he got such a thing from. The boy quietly answered that he stole it. Anissa reproachfully said that stealing is very bad. However, the boy already had another intention to use the seal immediately. The girl suspected that only a native of the South could decide on such words. She reasoned that only Southerners have such courage in their words. The girl was sitting at the table, thoughtfully examining the delicious dish that had just been brought to her. The maid approached her with the words that she had not seen such a dish for a long time. Something new and unusual could change the girl's mood. She suddenly screamed as if trying to express excitement because she had never complained before. Why did she have to go through this? But the girl only laughed in response, and the maid added, "It's better that workers like Lancel help Beatrice." The girl began to eat, but the more she ate, the more it annoyed her. It was just incredible. Even when he was doing nothing and getting a full salary, she still hated him. The girl quickly jumped up, sure that her desire to find him could drive her crazy. But suddenly she heard a strange, unpleasant smell that filled the air around. Turning around, she saw that a demon was approaching her, whom she called Smelly. But the demon claimed that he even washed himself so that she would no longer call him Smelly. The girl took a step forward, but the demon quickly hid behind her, trying to avoid her watchful gaze. Beauty reigned on the street. The bright sun illuminated the blue sky with scattered soft clouds. Running outside, the girl saw a boy lazily lying on the porch as if no one was bothering him. She approached him and was surprised to see Lancel. She smelled a strange but pleasant aroma. He was artificial to her, but at the same time enchanting. She inhaled him, smelling the aroma of roses. The boy suddenly woke up from fear because she woke him up. The girl was looking for a black rose to clean it. This task was not easy, so she reached out her hand to the boy. Lancel was afraid of the tiny rose, shaking it so that it would not break it. But she assured him that it was not so, and had another purpose. But when she touched him, something changed. An invisible wave of influence passed through him. The plaster rose was suddenly broken. The girl did not even touch it, she was only cleaning up her mess. But suddenly the rose fell into pieces. The girl did not understand anything. Is it magic or a curse? Everything seemed unclear and confusing. Lancel worriedly asked Milady if she was injured, but she replied that she escaped danger literally by some miracle. He took her hand and saw a wound there. The girl looked at him in surprise, but at that moment something incredible happened to Chappie. He began to transform into someone else. The young man boldly picked up the girl in his arms, and she just looked in surprise, trying to understand what was really happening. He quickly ran, holding the girl in his arms, loudly calling for help. The girl was injured, and he needed to find someone who could help as soon as possible. But the girl assured him that everything is fine with her. Lancel fell to his knees, and the girl worriedly asked if he was all right. Chappie looked up at the girl and asked if she had always been this cute. Anissa stopped in surprise and wondered why he was still on the roof. Lancel carefully sat her down on the bench, telling her to stay put. The girl followed Lancel's gaze, feeling surprised by his sudden concern. She noticed that his aura was no longer the dark blue color it used to be, and then she realized that Rose was under a curse. The girl thought and realized that it is incredible to be the only one among all the decorations that is not enchanted. She was sitting in the place where Lancel had left her, and everything around seemed to radiate magical charms. She wondered where the smell that surrounded her came from. An enchanted castle appeared before her eyes, as if torn from a fairy tale. Anissa raised her small hand as if she was going to touch the heavenly space itself, where the magic of the mysterious castle was already felt in the air. She noticed a statue in front of her, which turned out to be a fountain. She easily jumped on it and began to climb up. She sought to reach the eyes of the statue that suddenly spoke in her mind, although no one had any idea that they would end up in such a place. She reached the eye of one of the statues and began to carefully extract the diamond. Taking out the diamond from the statue's eye, she quietly descended, and she dived straight into the water, leaving only light splashes on the surface. Now the statue stood up holding a single diamond in its eye, silently observing everything around. The girl jumped off the statue and rushed into the fountain to get the diamonds. Getting out of the fountain completely wet but satisfied, the girl felt triumph, and another successful adventure ended successfully. The girl constantly thought about Lagrangians and believed that it was quite possible. She sympathized with the children who struggled with this difficult task. She understood these children seemed evil, and their auras were so black that it was beyond our understanding. But these children were not the embodiment of absolute evil. She analyzed and realized that the children from the novel and the children she knows are completely different people. She assured herself that the children of the Lagrangians were not born evil. Demons made them so. She assumed that if all these gadgets were destroyed, perhaps the children would become like Lancelot. She gathered all her strength and will into a fist. She was full of such confidence that nothing in the world could stop her. Gathering all her courage, she confidently walked towards the palace. Entering inside, she saw how everything around shone and sparkled, filling the space with magical light. Struck by the unsurpassed beauty around her, her heart fluttered with delight. But suddenly the girl felt a strange smell. Incense gradually enveloped all the rooms of the palace, creating an atmosphere of enchantment of a different and almost unreal world. Observing the auras, she realized that there was no one in these rooms except for the babies. She entered the room where the explosion still sounded. The frightened baby cried loudly, not understanding why no one was in a hurry to calm him down. She went to the cradle and saw a very tiny baby trembling defenselessly like a broken little bird. She looked enthusiastically at the baby. After thinking about it, she noted that Lagrange's children were always successful and endowed with wealth. She was surprised at how powerful the aura that flew over her was, and realized that due to the curse, her own aura would soon change color. Suddenly, she caught an unusual noise around her. She realized someone was approaching the room where she was. She was overcome with fear and panic raged in her head. Where should I go? Where to hide when every corner treacherously exposes her presence? Suddenly, the door of the room opened and a woman in a luxurious dress entered it. She looked around the room, absorbing every detail. Approaching the cradle, the woman heard the weak cry of the child. She must be hungry, she thought, gently bending over the little one. The girl hiding under the bed was surprised when Leatrice herself entered the room. The woman lifted the baby in her arms and Beulah addressed him rather rudely. She hated children because of their constant crying. The woman was very angry and could barely contain her anger. Her face was burning red. Rhythmically rocking the baby in her arms, she said bitterly, "He will still disappear as soon as I get attached to him." Suddenly, she heard a loud sneeze in the room. The girl covered her mouth with her hand, hoping that no one would notice her reaction. At that moment, the girl realized that she was in trouble. Leatrice admitted that she never learned to hide. And even the weakest animals don't create such noisy moments as she does now. She was lying in bed and saw severed limbs around her. Thinking about decency, she decided to hide at least 5 of them. The girl hastily hid her legs, but this only caused the woman to laugh. Leatrice stepped confidently onto the floor and said, "Even if she hid her feet, that doesn't mean I won't recognize her under the bed." The woman looked under the bed and saw the girl holding something in her hands. She asked what it was and if it belonged to her. The girl was trembling with fear, and Leatrice persistently waited for answers. She calmly said that she was ready to show patience, but did not want to waste her time. In a trembling voice, the girl said that she had nothing, but the woman noticed the toy. It was the melody of a lullaby that echoed in her hands. Leatrice shouted at her, accusing her of theft. The girl was terrified and trembled with fear. The woman ordered the girls out because she wasn't going to wait long. Her patience was at its limit, and she didn't want to waste time. When the girl came out, the woman was surprised by the unexpected appearance of the guest. She looked curiously at the girl among the paws, and her headache immediately subsided. "Do you have any special abilities?" she asked with all her air of interest. The girl noticed that the aura has changed since the last time. There were some burns that need to be cleaned, although she is not sure how to do it. Leatrice snatched the toy out of the girl's hands, and at the same moment, it fell to pieces. The woman thought that maybe it was the girl who put Asmodea's curse on her. The girl apologized to the woman, but this toy turned out to be a relic of the first Duke of Lagrange. The woman asked why she did it. The girl was silent, but in her thoughts, pictures emerged. Because of these artifacts, the children of Lagrange can become evil. Suddenly, the girl felt a strange aura emerging from under the table. She was surprised and exclaimed, "What is this mysterious void?" The woman looked sternly at the girl, assuring her that she should not be afraid of anything. The children will soon return from hunting and everything will be fine. And only now did the girl understand why the palace was so empty. But what could be wrong with her if Alphonse comes back? The girl begged to let her go and was ready to fulfill any demand if only Leatrice would soften her heart. The woman coldly replied that she would not let her go until she explained what she wanted. But suddenly, a guy burst into the door. The woman turns around, her face expressing complete confusion. The guy who flew in the door was Ulrich. The woman was angry that Ulrich, her son, flew in without knocking. She sharply pointed out to him that such behavior was very impolite. He looked at the girl standing in front of him and suddenly realized what Annis is. From the window, he saw a little girl standing with injuries on her body. No one seemed to pay attention to her plight. Anissa looked around in surprise with big eyes, not understanding what was happening. She watched his lips closely, feeling something suddenly pinch in her chest. He knew he would save her, but he didn't say it out loud. She could read the saving words on his lips. The girl was surprised by the fact that he seems to have said that he would save the woman. Is something very strange happening? The boy could not understand what she meant. Her words sounded mysterious. Her eyes met his stern gaze, full of mystery and power, and then she told him what her eyes could no longer express at once, which penetrated her every gesture. Anissa could not understand what was happening around her. Her mind was filled with questions, and the answers were hidden in unspeakable words. Anissa understood everything. As always, it turned out that she had an unpleasant look. After a long pause, the woman asked, "What does this child want from me?" She didn't come here just like that. But the girl didn't know what to answer. She turned to her son and asked what he had in common with this little girl. The boy told everything and added that it was Alphonse's order. If she doesn't believe him, she can ask him everything herself. The woman got angry when she found out that the boy could not say it on his own. After giving up the title, he became Alphonse's servant. Although he had the opportunity to tell about her orders, it indicated who the real master was. They stood in silence for several minutes, studying each other carefully. After the door slammed shut, the woman left. The children heaved a sigh of relief, as if a big mountain had been lifted off their shoulders. Suddenly, the chair came to life, and a demon appeared from it and turned to the girl. "Why are you here?" She replied that she had come to resolve her urgent matters, Chappie thought, not understanding what it really was. He was deeply troubled by the fact that now her eyes no longer seemed so repulsive to him. Their eyes had never met before. She had never looked into his eyes. But today, something unusual happened. For the first time, she looked into his eyes, listening to his words carefully without looking away. Their conversation was clear and direct. The girl wondered what could have so strongly influenced the behavior of Dietrich to change it so much. And suddenly, the girl began to remember all the moments that happened to her today. Everything that she did, and the diamond eye that she pulled out of the statue, and that toy that they broke. And then she realized that all those gadgets that she smashed were actually cursed. A young girl with horror in her eyes screamed at Yuri. She desperately asked why he lied about Alphonse, because now everything will be known. The guy assured Anise that everything would be fine so that she wouldn't worry. But she had no idea how to save him from the next massacre due to his deception. Chappie excused himself that he had no choice but to lie in this situation. But the girl understood that she should ask Alphonse, and everything will be revealed. So he will not be able to appear in her eyes anymore, the girl wondered. Will we suddenly find something else? The boy did not understand what she was talking about and was surprised by her mysterious expression. Anissa was looking for a way to protect Yuri from other children. Yuri looked at her questioningly and did not understand what she was talking about. Her mysterious expression only increased the intrigue. In the book, it was said that children under the curse are extremely cruel to Yuri. If he destroys all these things that affect them, maybe they will change. She resolutely jumped into the demon's arms, ordering him to immediately rush to the Rose Palace. The demon sighed and told that it was already too much. But children cannot know about this. The girl reported that Catherine, one of Derek's wives, lives in the palace, but no one knows the exact location. They went to the alley hoping to find answers. And suddenly, where is the girl? They smelled a strange smell in the air. The demon warned that she would only find problems. Advice to run away did not scare the girl. She boldly moved forward, ignoring all warnings. Her demon warned, "And how will His Majesty find out about this?" "He will be very angry." Despite the warning, Anise was stubborn in her decision. She wanted to help Yuri so that he would not suffer anymore. Nothing could stop the little girl. She confidently went forward even if she had to finish what she started. The girl was embarrassed when she felt how the smell around her changed in different places. The girl looked behind the tree and noticed that the ornaments were on a human body. She saw 3 small children who were playing and quarreling with each other. And it was from there that smell that she had noticed even earlier. Looking around, the little boy noticed that someone was following them. They approached the girl, asking who she is and what she is doing here. What is she hiding? The girl did not understand what was happening. She did not know how to answer and who she was in this confusing situation. The boys suddenly pounced on her with swords, demanding that she immediately tell who she was. The girl was confused. She did not understand why she was attacked because she was entrusted with a very important mission on which the fate of many people depended. The boys' swords flashed closer and closer to her. She didn't know how to answer them. Suddenly, she loudly shouted that it was a demonic shadow. The boys froze in incomprehension, exchanging surprised looks. Anissa looked at the boys with wide-open eyes, catching their confusion. The boys stood stunned, not believing their own eyes. The great shadow demon himself was raging in front of them. Anis could not believe that they were so gullible. Her mission was to take away their necklaces that adorned their necks. She came closer and immediately felt that it was these necklaces that emitted a curse. The guy suddenly attacked the girl, asking if she had anything important. The owner intervened and tried to convince them both to sign a contract while they were arguing with each other. Anissa shouted that she did not need it. No. The owner and the boys closed their mouths, surprised by the unexpected turn of events. Why so? Anissa replied that she is a demon hermit. Her words sounded like thunder in the clear sky, leaving everyone around in a complete stupor. The boys stood trying to understand how it was even possible to hear such a thing. The guys started voting and asking questions. What kind of girl is this and what is she even like? Someone asked. Maybe it's just some unresearched poisoning that they haven't tried yet? The girl abruptly stopped this commotion, attracting the attention of the boys. However, their screams quickly made her shut up. She offered them to play a game. They were immediately interested because they had never known a more cheerful Igor than when he played a game called Kill Your Brother. However, Anis assured them that there were other exciting games and offered to use their necklace as a prize that she wanted to get hold of. Anissa deftly outwitted the inexperienced players by taking all 3 necklaces from them. Finally understanding, Anissa realized that only by touching the black fog could she cleanse the necklaces from its curse. Unfortunately, the black mist was not even going to disappear. She wanted to clean the necklaces as soon as possible to return them to the boys. That day, she played with them carefree. The games were incredibly interesting and very distracting, so she was able to forget about silly thoughts and problems at least for a moment. Igor offered to exchange them for a necklace, assuring them that their absence would not last long. They could borrow, but the boy refused because their mother had ordered them never to take them off. Suddenly, she snatched their necklaces from her hands and the demon swept her into his arms and dashed away. The boys were enraged by her act. Anissa couldn't believe that they agreed. She played hide and seek until suddenly a demon burst into her room, scared her and said it was time to sleep. She quickly hid the pendants under a pile of toys, hoping that the demon would not notice them. She sincerely hoped that the demon would not notice the pendants, which were now safely hidden under a pile of toys. The demon thought that she was just getting ready for sleep and remarked that it was good that she was pretending and nothing happened. Even though she ran off with those pendants, he still decided to give them to you. He has the full picture. But then why is he pretending to be a demon hiding under the covers wishing for sweet dreams? She shouted to the demon and he turned to her. She asked if the result was really bad. The demon, doubting the meaning of the bad, answered mysteriously, "What is bad for a demon?" She looked at him thoughtfully. She wondered if all demons were really bad. She looked at him intently, waiting for an answer to her questions. She remembered her brother's words again. If you are not strong enough to control the demon, it will take over another person and the previous master will die. She screamed at the demon again, demanding an answer. Really? Dietrich must die because of you? The demon told her that it was a mutual decision and they agreed to serve only as payment for debts. The girl exclaimed, "Why?" But the demon just shrugged his shoulders in surprise, not understanding what he was talking about. She asked why this happens. And indeed, because demons are usually stronger. She was always interested to know the answer to this question. The ball prophetically told her that whoever uses the power of a demon accumulates it, and in the end, the line between man and demon will be erased forever. The girl looked at him with fear in her eyes. The girl, barely restraining the trembling in her voice, asked, "Really?" The demon didn't hesitate to confirm this as he prepared to eat the child. Anissa was alarmed and looked for a way out, but the demon responded mercilessly. "No one can interfere here. Even Hera, the goddess of the sun, is powerless here." As always, Anissa faced challenges that turned out to be much more difficult than she imagined. Purifying the aura seemed like child's play in comparison. The demon announced that there were enough serious conversations for today, and, turning to Anissa, added that it was time to go to bed. After singing his lullaby, the demon dissolved, turning the bed into a puddle. Anissa was left alone. Her thoughts were swirling in her head restlessly. Despite the fact that Anissa is used to being alone and intimacy with people has always been difficult for her, now this loneliness has become a little scary. In this completely unusual situation, she especially lacked children's voices around her. He often avoided her, but it seemed that her presence in the palace was necessary. Anissa again longed to look at the necklace that she had secretly taken from the little Pustuns, and suddenly she noticed a shadow in the doorway. At first she thought it was a killer, but it was strange because they usually don't even dare to come close to her. "And at home he behaved strangely," she exclaimed. "What's wrong with these children?" Exhaling, she realized that it was true, but that he was the one. She also felt fear. It is surprising that he came to her, because lately his behavior showed deliberate avoidance. She grabbed the doorknob and turned it, opening the door. Their meeting was sure to change everything. A bloodied baby appeared in front of her and she felt fear for him. Blood flowed from his body. The baby looked as if he did not even understand what had happened to him. He quietly asked her not to make too much noise, assuring him that everything was fine with him. She couldn't believe her eyes. Every centimeter of his body was covered in wounds. How is he still alive? The pain he endured was unbelievable. It seemed almost impossible. Tears appeared in her eyes. Blood flooded the whole room and she could not understand why it happened. Who dared to do such a cruel act? But what made them? She took out the first aid kit and began to bandage the wounds. Tears flowed like a river, but she promised not to cry anymore because she was already an adult. Looking at the child's wounds, she understood that she could not hold back her pain. Dietrich looked at her sadly, his face covered in blood and wounds. She was crying ugly like a baby, and Dietrich couldn't help but notice. He spoke up short and sharp, trying to lighten the atmosphere. Don't cry like that. It's only beautifying your wounds, she screamed, wondering why he was looking at her like that. His gaze was sharp and fixed. He asked why she was crying, but Anissa couldn't stand it and began to say indignantly, "How can he constantly pretend that everything is fine and now dare to ask why she is crying?" He looked at her, barely restraining the pain from the wounds. Dietrich carefully wiped the tears from her delicate face. He looked at her again, trying to understand wherein his family could be such a gentle and graceful, albeit a little tearful girl. She answered, "Why cry if you are sad?" "It's normal. It's just that it was a common phenomenon for her. I feel sorry for him and I sympathize with him very much," she shouted at him. "When everything is good, you don't even remember me. But as soon as something happens, you immediately run." She feels pain seeing him in this state. But the children were in complete despair. He did not know how to help them and what decision would be right now. Despair filled his soul, leaving only many doubts and indecision. Anissa advised him to run away. Dietrich was stunned. He asked Anissa to repeat his words. Anissa understood that Dietrich was destined to become a duke. But if this happens, he risks becoming an enemy of Germany and falling into the clutches of demons. He repeated these words again and offered to escape. She could not understand, believing that they were born in hell. She repeated to this child that their escape means a path to heaven, albeit separately, but with faith in a common future.